seated, please. We're so thankful to be here. We're so thankful to have so many people who are serving the community come here. I know that you are very busy, so we really want to thank you for coming out here today. For now, we're going to introduce everyone to IYF, which is International Youth Fellowship. So we have a number of programs, so we'd like to show a brief introductory video of the programs that we are doing here at IYF. So please enjoy the brief promotional video for International Youth Fellowship.
In the past, prison was the place to punish offenders, but now has changed to a facility that helps prisoners to live again in society. There are lots of cases where criminals commit offenses and face imprisonment again even after they seem to have reformed. Therefore, to solve recidivism, the International Youth Fellowship, IYF, is leading the prisoners to change their hearts through Prison Mind Education Program. Dr. Kim Gisong was imprisoned for 17 years on a conviction of murder that he committed during his young days. He saw many inmates go back to prison even after their release. He was in deep agony trying to find a way to be free from the power that led him to commit crime. Thankfully, he could realize the secret of overcoming this power through the teacher that led him to live a new life after being released from prison. Through International Youth Fellowship Prison Mind Education Program, Dr. Kim Gisong applies the secret of possessing a strong mind that he learned to help the prisoners refrain from their previous dark lives. The IYF Prison Mind Education Program helps prisoners to understand and solve the origin of the problem, leads the prisoners to change and live new lives without being tempted to commit the crimes again. The inmates change their minds while naturally laughing and enjoying with the mentors who have been trained by professional instructors. The IYF Prison Mind Education Program was initiated in South Korea and is now being applied all over the world. Irrespective of the state and society, reducing crime rate is a big issue for any society, as well as the correction of the inmates and the prevention of recidivism. IYF Mind Education Program improves the awareness of the inmates, improves their happiness, contributes to correction, prevents recidivism, and helps in the successful advancement of the society. Currently, 26 nations are actively engaged in mind education programs in correction facilities. The IYF Mind Education is on progress in South Korea, America, India, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, among many other countries, and has achieved outstanding results. In Kenya specifically, we have concluded an MOU with the Kenya Prison Service and are working actively in all the 119 prisons across the nation. In addition to the lectures for inmates and prison staff, the prison college trainees and the prison chaplains are also given this training. In juvenile prisons, we conduct academic classes every week as we continue to plant the right mind and hope for the youth. That notwithstanding, in December 2017, we established a mind education institution in Kamiti Maximum Prison, the largest correctional facility in Kenya.
The training institute has also begun in Langata Women's Prison and Kitengela Prison in January 2018 and it's expanding continuously.
Because we want them to be positive in mind, we want them to change the way they do things, and they can only do that through some knowledge which is coming through mindful education. So it will be a big tool in rehabilitation in the Kenya prisons. I hope that it spreads in all the institutions Kenya.
The Education Center established in the prison plans to conduct personality education every week to the inmates and to produce excellent graduates as mind instructors so that they can work in prisons throughout Kenya. IYF Mind Education is highly recommended and supported by government officials who need a healthy mindset for the safety of the people and the maintenance of social order. The governments of several countries in the world are educating the prison guards, police, and teachers through the IYF Mind lectures. IYF held the first Directors of Correction Agency World Seminar in 2017. Commissioners of Correctional Services from Kenya, Botswana, Namibia, and Swaziland attended and knew the flow of the rehabilitation activities of the prisons in the world. All commissioners joined and showed the will towards the true reforming act of IYF that changes the hearts of the prisoners. The Directors of Correctional Agencies World Seminar will grow to become a leading role in the world's penitentiary activities in the future. The Mind Education gives hope to the prisoners. The prisoners who are released after being changed through Mind Education will be free from the dark shadow of society and will live as the leaders who change the surrounding society and the nation.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the poor visibility, but I hope you were able to get the gist of the message of what we're doing. We have our founder, Pastor Oksu Park, who is in Korea. He founded this program, Mind Education, and he is also has a lot of the roots from when he began his ministry. He did a lot of prison ministry at first, and so the success of so many people who have now become pastors, missionaries, have gone on to live healthy families, become very good wives, husbands, fathers, mothers. They completely changed their lives through this Mind Education lecture series, which is inspired from the Bible. So as he was able to reach these people on a very personal heart level, they changed from within. And now we want to introduce this all over the world, and today we're going to introduce you to our representative for IYF, who has been doing this work for many years. Now at this time, I would like to take the time to introduce a very special guest who's going to welcome you here today. He's going to give a welcoming address. He is the police chief of the Hempstead Police Department. Please welcome Police Chief Paul Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Once again, I am Paul Johnson, Chief of Police of the Hempstead Police Department. I would like to welcome everyone to the first Police Corrections Forum, at least in Long Island. I don't know where else you guys have operated before. It is my desire today to have an open and forward-thinking discussion with members of my fellow colleagues here, fellow police, corrections officials, in addition to discussing with audience members how the impact of police corrections affects youth today and the things we could do to help them. Today I'm here with Lieutenant Derek Warner of the Hempstead Police Department, sitting right here. Lieutenant Warner is the commanding officer of our Juvenile Bureau, and he's also the commanding officer of the Domestic Violence Bureau. On behalf of the Honorable Mayor Don Ryan of the Incorporated Village of Hempstead, he offers his appreciation for the invitation today, but he could not make it because he had a prior commitment. A couple of facts. The Village of Hempstead recently celebrated its 375th anniversary. The Village of Hempstead is also the largest village in New York State, and therefore we also have the largest village police department in New York State. We're a very active department. Basically, our members answer about 45,000 to 50,000 calls every year. It's a very busy place. A couple of facts about myself. I've been a police officer for 28 years. I started my career in the New York City Police Department, where I worked for 7 years, and then I came to the Village of Hempstead, which is actually where I grew up. Basically, I've always had a vision for our department, and that is to strive for excellence, where our community feels safe, where our community feels included and respected. To reach these goals, I've increased the training for our department. We've implemented a new manual. We also invested a lot of money into technology. We've invested in things like Shot Spotter, license plate readers to increase our efficiency and solve more crimes. Once again, I'd like to say welcome to the first Police Corrections Forum, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Chief. And also, once again, congratulations on your anniversary. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I would like to introduce all of our panelists this morning. So if I call your name, please just rise and turn around and say hello to the audience behind you. At this time, once again, I would like to announce the Police Chief of Hempstead Police Department, Chief Paul Johnson. And as he mentioned, Lieutenant Derek Warner, Commanding Officer of the Juvenile Aid Bureau and Domestic Violence Bureau. Also, we have Chief of Juvenile Detention Center from the County of Bergen, New Jersey, Chief Robert Payne is here. We also have Officer Ahmad Kesba from the Nassau County Police Department. We also have Police Officer Andrew Tepper from the Suffolk County Police Department. We also have Police Chaplain from the New York City Police Department, Chaplain Barbara Williams Harris. We have the Neighborhood Coordinating Officer from the New York City Police Department, I think in Brooklyn. Please welcome Officer John Bridgewood. Last but not least, we have our Police Chaplain for the Suffolk County Police Department. Please welcome Reverend Alex Acevedo. So this is our panel. We're very excited. I believe there's probably so many years of experience in this room on the police force. So once again, I'd like to thank you. But one of the things that we want to do during this forum is we want to make change. And that is what one of the mottos of International Youth Fellowship is: change, challenge, and cohesion. One of the issues, one of the breakthroughs that Pastor Oksupark did that really touched my heart, and it's in Pastor Oksupark's Mind Education book that he wrote about, was a former inmate. Now, I met him, but I didn't know he was the guy in the story. So when I met him in South Korea, he was a super nice guy, and I was like, wow, this is the nicest guy ever. And like, he would like, when I was in missionary school in Korea at the church, Pastor Park's church, he would sneak in snacks and like help me out with like, you know, some American food that I missed while I was in Korea. So he was a nice guy. And then later, which is approximately 1 year ago, I found out who he was. Because he's anonymous in the book. But what happened was, he was a person who was married to a woman. And in culture, there's a culture issue. Like in Korea, it's frowned upon to go out dancing. So one day, he felt like his wife was hiding something. So he looked and he's like, something's wrong. She would come home late, she would wear more makeup than usual. So he's like, where have you been? And she says, nowhere. But then he did a little bit of digging and he found out that she was going dancing every night with her sister. So in Korea, this is a very, very bad thing. So he said, please, stop dancing. Please, I beg you. So he begged. He tried to put his foot down, got stern, and he just like, you know, gave her gifts. He tried everything he could to get her to stop dancing, but she kept dancing. Then he found out that she was being tempted to dance by her sister. So he went to the sister to confront her and said, you're causing a problem in our marriage. You're causing a problem with our family. Please stop taking my wife to dance. But then she started like yelling at him, who are you? Who do you think you are talking to me like this? You ruined my sister's life. I can't believe she married a loser like you. And she just berated him. And then he says, next thing you know, something clicked. When he woke up, his sister-in-law was dead on the floor and he had like a knife in his hand. So then he went out into the streets and started threatening to kill like his in-laws and his wife. But then he got arrested and he was sentenced to prison for I think about 12 years. And while there, he became what they call a model prisoner. So he started reforming, changing, following all the rules. In Korea, they have a bee system, like a bumblebee. So if you get like 3 bees, you can get released early. So he was already at 2.5 bees. So he's only got half a bee left. And then one day, that's when Pastor Oaksu Park visited the prison system and was having a Bible study. Well, he listened very intently. And one day, because he was a model prisoner, he was helping putting away the books. And Pastor Park says, "Hey, what are you in for?" And he explained. And Pastor Park was shocked. But then he said something very interesting. He said, "Pastor, do you know why I have 2.5 bees? Because I want to get early release so I can finish my revenge on the people who ruined my life. I have lost 12, 14 years of my life. I lost my kids. I lost my family. I lost everything." So Pastor looked at him and he says, "What are you talking about? I'm older than you. What do you mean you lost all your life? I'm 10 years older than you. I still have a lot of life to live." And you think about it. When you get out, you're going to talk to your son. You're going to talk to your daughter. Your son's in college right now. He probably has a girlfriend, maybe a fiance. Now imagine you going to his wedding. Imagine you holding their new baby in your arms as a grandfather. Imagine all the things that you could do. So one by one, as Pastor Oaksu Park started to explain to him about a different heart, a different world of the heart, he completely changed. Well, now he was released. After he was released, he remarried. He has 3 beautiful children, and he has a really good relationship with his son and daughter from his past wife, and they're all married, and he has a great family. And now he's also an IYF Mind Education lecturer in Korea. So these are real changes that come about in people's hearts. So we want to instill change through this program that we call Mind Education. And we believe that we could work together for a beautiful result. That is why we're having this Police and Corrections Forum together here in the United States. It's done a lot of work around the world, but we are excited. I'm excited because I'm American. I'm excited that we're going to start this work here. And it all begins here in New York, New Jersey area. So I really think about that. I'm very thankful in my heart. So at this time, we're going to introduce our Director of Correctional and Police Education, who's been doing and spearheading this work all around the world. He is coming to do a Mind Education lecture for us on the importance and necessity of mind education. Please welcome Pastor Ki-Sung Kim.
네, 안녕하십니까?
Hello everyone,
네, 너무 반갑습니다.
nice to meet all of you.
저도 미국에 자주 왔는데요.
I actually visited America several times.
여러분을 한국에 초대하고 싶은 마음도 있습니다.
I also want to invite all of you to Korea once.
한국이 미국 때문에 굉장히 발전 많이 했는데
Korea actually made many advancements because of America.
보여드리고 싶습니다.
I'd like to show you all those advancements.
우리 해년마다 7월달 되면 교정청장 포럼 또 경찰청장 포럼을 이렇게 합니다.
And so every July in Korea we have the Police and Correctional Forum.
그때 꼭 한번 오셨으면 좋겠습니다.
I really like to invite you during that time.
저는 1987년도에 이제 교도소에 구속이 됐습니다.
I was in prison in 1987
그리고 이제 2003년도에 제가 출소를 했는데요.
and I was released 2003.
제가 왜 이제 교도소 가게 됐냐면
And so the reason why I ended up in prison was because,
저는 강도 살인죄로 교도 들어갔습니다.
and so for murder I was in prison.
현금 수송차를 들다가
As I was trying to steal money from a money-moving vehicle,
교도소에 들어갔는데요.
and I eventually was put into prison.
처음에 돈이 필요해서 도둑질을 했습니다.
And so in the beginning, I needed money. That's why I stole.
그래서 도둑질하다가 돈이 안 돼서
And I tried stealing, but eventually it was not suitable enough.
이제 크게 한탕 해야 되겠다 이런 생각이 들었고요.
So I felt like I need to do something big.
딱 한 방에 끝내자
I thought, let me just finish all this in one shot.
이런 생각이 들었습니다.
And that was the thought that I had.
그래서 현금 수송차를 털다가 제가 감옥에 들어가게 되는데요.
And so eventually I was in prison after attempting to steal money from a money-moving vehicle.
처음에 1심에서 사형을 받았습니다.
And so at first I was given the penalty,
그리고 제가 15년형을 떨어졌는데
and eventually I was given First given the death penalty and then afterwards given 15 years in prison.
그때 저는 감옥 안에서 이 IIF를 만났습니다.
And so while I was in prison, that's when I first encountered the IYF.
약 한 10년이 넘도록 교도소 안에서 마인드 교육을 들었습니다.
And so I was listening to the mind education for roughly over 15 years within the prison.
IIF 설립자 되시는 박옥수 목사님 만나뵀는데요.
I was able to meet with the founder of IYF, Pastor Oksu Park there.
저는 그때 10년 동안 마인드 교육을 들으면서 제 인생이 얼마나 잘못된 인생을 살았는지 그걸 발견할 수 있도록 됐습니다.
And so for the 15 years as I was listening to the mind education, I was able to realize how wrongful of a life I've lived until then.
너무너무 과거가 많이 비춰지고
I was able to reflect upon my past many
Yeah.
times.
23살 들어갔는데
I was put into prison at age 23.
어렸을 때 이 마인드 교육을 만났으면
And if I had met this mind education when I was younger,
내 인생이 이렇게 비참하게 살지 않았을 텐데 그런 생각이 많이 들었고요.
many times I thought my life would not have been this pitiful.
그래서 제가 출소하고 나서 이 마인드 교육을 가지고 내 재수사를 위해 살고 싶은 마음이 들었고
And after I was released, I wanted to take this mind education to be able to work for many other criminals.
또 재범을 막는 일들을 하고 싶은 마음이 들었습니다.
And I also wanted to stop recriminalization.
전 세계 어디를 가도 재수사 재범을 막는데 이 숙제를 풀지를 못합니다.
Wherever you may go to any sort of prison, they have this big assignment of trying to stop recriminalization. However, it's very difficult to do so.
마약 중독자를 마약에서 벗어나게 하고
To be able to have a drug addict be set free from drugs.
전과자들이 다시 교도소 안 들어오게 하는 건 이건 풀 수 없는 숙제죠.
And so for many inmates to be able to be released and afterwards having them not to come back, that's something that's very difficult to be able to resolve.
지금 제가 약 한 30개 나라의 교도소 안에 이 마인드 학교 프로그램을 하고 있는데요.
I'm currently running the mind educational school program in 30 different countries around the world.
모든 경찰, 모든 교정청장님이 가지고 있는 고민이 그거였습니다.
And so whether it may be any sort of chief police or any sort of correctional leader, this is the biggest assignment that's on their heads.
하여튼 여러분 오늘 너무 잘 오신 것 같고
But I truly believe that you came to the right place.
그 근본적인 문제를 한번 우리가 서서히 한번 풀어봤으면 좋겠습니다.
And so we'd like to look into the source of this matter.
제가 출소를 딱 6개월 앞두고 있었습니다.
And this was 6 months before my release.
제가 23살 때 들어갔으니까
Because I went in 23,
제 마음에 어떤 마음이 들었냐면
the heart which I had was,
젊은 청춘을 교도소에 다 보냈습니다.
I had spent all of my youth within the prison.
그러는 만큼 내가 다시 교도소 들어온다면 나는 평생 교도소 안에서 썩어야겠다는 생각이 들었습니다.
And I came to the realization that if I were to come back to prison ever again, then I would have to waste my entire life here in prison.
다시는 교도소 들어오고 싶지 않았습니다.
I did not want to come back to prison at all.
근데 그때 제가 한 번 더 생각을 했습니다.
However, I started thinking one more time.
제가 16년 동안 있으면서
As I was there for 16 years,
나보다 먼저 출소한 재수사들이 수천 명, 수만 명이 있습니다.
there were thousands and tens of thousands of other criminals who were released before me.
자, 이 사람들 나가면서 다 같이 하나같이 가졌던 생각이 뭐였냐면은 나는 다시는 교도소 안 들어올 거야 하고 나갔어요.
All of these people, as they were released and walking out of prison, they all thought alike, I'm never going to come back here. I have changed.
교정청장님 그거 안 보셨습니까?
Have you ever seen that before?
예,
Correctional leaders?
다 안 들어온다고 나갑니다.
They all say they're never going to come back here. That's how they leave.
제가 교도소 교육 가면
If I go into the prisons and do the educational program,
마약으로 들어온 사람 손 들어요.
and I ask anyone who came here for drugs, raise your hand.
필리핀이나 저쪽에 캄보디아 같은 경우는 거의 90%가 마약 수용자.
And so whether it may be the Philippines or Cambodia, nearly 90% of the criminals there, they're there for drug abuse.
이번에 확실히 마약 끊은 사람 손 드세요.
And so raise your hand if you're sure you quit drugs this time.
교도소 안에서 마약 끊은 사람 손 드세요.
Raise your hand if you quit drugs for sure this time.
거의 99% 손 듭니다.
Nearly 99% of them would raise their hands,
그렇죠.
right?
저도 교도소 안에서 정신 차렸다고 생각했습니다.
When I was in prison, I also thought that I snapped out of this.
문제는 나보다 먼저 출소한 사람이 나갔다가 다시 들어오는 거예요.
The problem was that there were many criminals ahead of me who were released and then they returned.
교도소 안에서 가장 수용 생활 잘하는 사람이 누굽니까?
Who are the people that are able to spend their time in prison the best?
기독교 회장, 불교 회장, 천주교 회장 이런 사람.
It is the leaders of the Christian groups, the Buddhist groups, and Catholic groups.
이런 사람 정말 천사처럼 신앙생활 잘했는데
And these are people that really live like angelic lives.
이런 사람들이 나갔다가 다시 돌아왔어요.
But then they were released and then they returned.
절대 안 들어오겠다는 사람들.
These were people that said they would never come back.
그러면서 제 마음이 그때 무너졌어요.
And that's when my heart crumbled.
아, 나가면은 나는 다시 들어오는
If I were to be released, I will be back here again.
이 생각이 들었어요.
That's the thought that I came to.
나 다시 들어오기 싫은데.
I don't want to come back here.
그래서 제가 안 나갈 수는 없고
And so there was no way for me not to be released.
앉아서 제가 밖으로 나가봤어요.
And so then, inside of my heart, I left the place for once.
저는 제 어머니는 제가 교도소 있을 때 면회 오시다가 돌아가셨고요.
My mother, while I was in prison, she tried to visit me and she passed away on the way to come to visit me.
제 아버지는 살아계셨어요.
And my father was alive at the time then.
내가 아버지한테 가야지.
I thought I should return back to my father.
아버지, 저 왔습니다.
Father, I'm here.
그래, 너 수고 많이 했다.
Okay, well, good job.
아니요, 아버지가 고생 많이 하셨죠.
Oh no, Father, you went through too much.
자, 저하고 아버지가 대화하고 있는데
And so my father and I were having a conversation.
고향에 있는 친구들이 찾아왔어요.
And then my friends back at home, they came to visit me.
야, 기상아, 너 출소 축하한다.
Hey, Kisang, we congratulate you for your release.
너 교도소 있는 동안에 한 번도 면회 못 가서 미안하다.
I'm so sorry we couldn't visit you in prison while you were there.
이 출소 기념으로 내가 술 한잔 살게.
Hey, to commemorate this time, let's go and have a drink.
고향에 있는 친구들이 찾아와.
My friends would come and visit me.
내가 친구들을 만나면 술 한잔 해야 되고
If I were to meet my friends, then I have to go out for that drink.
술 한잔 하면 나는 다시 교도소 가야겠다는 생각이 들었어요.
And I came to the realization that if I were to go out for that drink, then I would end up back in prison again.
아, 내가 아버지한테 가면 안 되겠구나.
I should not go back to my father then.
제 아버지한테 편지 썼습니다.
I wrote a letter to my father.
아버지 죄송합니다.
Father, I'm so sorry.
내가 아버지한테 가야 되는데
I have to return to you,
아버지한테 못 갈 것 같습니다.
but I don't think I can.
아버지 만나면 친구들 찾아오고
Father, if I were to go to you, then my friends would come visit me.
친구들 만나면 술 한잔 하고
And if my friends come and visit me, then we have to go out for a
술
drink.
한잔 하면 난 다시 교도소 가야 합니다.
And if I go out for that drink, then I have to come back to prison.
아버지 저 교도소 가기 싫습니다.
Father, I do not want to come back to prison.
제 아버지가 저한테 편지가 왔습니다.
And my father, he sent the letter back to me.
내 아들아,
He said, my son,
너 나한테 안 와도 된다.
it's okay if you don't return to me.
나도 내 아들이 다시 교도소 가는 걸 원치 않아.
I also do not want my son to return back to prison.
너 네 선생님께 가거라.
You go to your teacher.
그때 아야부 설립자 대신 박옥수 목사님께 저희들 들어오셔가지고 이렇게 교육을 해주셨습니다.
At the time, the founder of IYF, he came to our prison and he gave us many educational programs.
그때 2003년도에 제가 출소하는 날
And so that day when I was released from prison,
아무도 못 오게 하고
I did not allow anyone to come.
제 목사님께 편지했습니다.
And then I wrote a letter to Pastor.
목사님, 저는 두렵습니다.
Pastor, I'm afraid.
저는 16년 동안 제 마음에 누르는 욕망들이 있습니다.
I have many desires for the past 16 years that I've piled up.
나가면 담배도 피우고 싶고
When I get released, I want to smoke.
술도 한잔 하고 싶고
I also want to go out for a drink.
여자들도 만나고 싶고
I also want to meet women.
이 욕망을 내 스스로 다스릴 수가 없습니다.
There's no way for me to be able to control these desires on my own.
저를 도와주십시오.
Please help me.
제가 시키는 대로 하겠습니다.
I'll do whatever you tell me to do.
앉으라면 앉고
If you tell me to sit, I'll sit.
누우라면 누우고
If you tell me to lay, I'll lay.
일어서라면
If
일어서겠습니다.
you tell me to get up, I'll get up.
저 교도소 안 가게 해주세요.
Just help me not to come back to prison.
제가 출소하는 날 목사님이 데리러 오셨습니다.
On the day of my release, Pastor came out to meet me.
지금까지 제가 인도를 받고 다스림을 받았습니다.
And until this very moment, I've constantly been led and also been guided.
제가 16년 동안 교도소 안에 있으면서 제가 정확하게 하나 깨달은 게 하나 있었어요.
For 16 years that I was in prison, there was something that I came to realize for sure.
제가 교도소 안에서 죄에 안 졌습니다.
Everyone, I did not commit sin when I was in prison.
혹시 교도소 안에서 마약합니까?
For,
미국에도.
for example, in American prisons, do criminals do drugs in the prisons?
마약합니까?
Do they do drugs?
안 하죠. 근데 저쪽 남미는 다릅니다.
However, in South America, it's a little different.
남미는 교도관하고 아니 마피아하고 제주하고 아니 교도관하고 짜고 마약을 팔아요.
And so then the mafia members that are inside of prison, the criminals, and also the guards, they plan out together and they give and take, and then they do drugs
자,
there.
여러분 경찰 교도관이잖아요.
And so these are the guards, right? They're the police.
아, 경찰관 한 사람의 마인드가 얼마나 중요한지 그때 내가 알았어.
I came to realize the mindset of a police is so important.
경찰관 한 사람의 잘못된 마인드가
Really, if the mindset of one policeman goes wrong,
전 국민을 불안에 떨게 만들었어.
what it does is it brings the entire nation to insecurity.
특히나 한국 사람 밖에 나가 돌아다니지 못하는.
Especially Koreans, they cannot be running outside.
너무 경찰관 마인드가 굉장히 중요하다는 사실 제가 알았어요.
I came to realize that the mindset of the police are so important.
그래서 제가 교도소에 있는 재수사들이
And so the prisoners that are inside the prison,
이제 더 마약 끊은 사람 하면 다 손들.
and so you say, raise your hand if you quit drugs. They all raise their hands.
다 손들.
They all raise their hands.
왜 그랬습니까?
Why?
교도소 안에서는 마약을 안 합니다.
Because when they're inside of prison, they don't do drugs.
도둑질 안 합니다.
They don't steal.
강도짓 안 합니다.
They don't go and rob.
왜 안 합니까?
Why?
교도관 때문에 안 하는 거예요.
Because of the guards.
교도관 총 들고 있잖아요.
Because the guards have guns around,
그죠? 딱 지키고 있으니까
right? They're keeping watch.
마약 중독자들이 마약을 못 하는 거예요.
That's why drug addicts cannot do drugs.
도둑질 못 하는 거예요.
They can't steal.
강도짓 못 하는 거예요.
They cannot rob.
그럼 너무 오랫동안 교도소 안에 있으니까
For such a long time, they've been inside the prison.
이 사람들이 착각을 일으킵니다.
These people, they start feeling illusional.
마약 안 했잖아.
Hey, I didn't do drugs.
그러니까 나는 변했어.
That's why I've changed.
난 달라졌어.
I've changed.
이 생각을 하는 거예요.
And that's what they start thinking.
그래서 그게 저하고 좀 달랐어요.
This was the difference between them and I.
아, 내가 가장 깨끗하게 살았던 곳이 교도소였어.
And the place where I lived the most clean life was inside of prison.
교도관 선생님 총 들고 지키고 있으니까
Because the guards, they have guns walking around and they're keeping watch.
교도소는 내 마음대로 할 수 있는 곳이 아니잖아.
The prison is not a place where I can do whatever I want.
아, 내가 교도소 안에서 범죄 안 하는 것은 내가 변해서 범죄를 안 한 게 아니고
And the reason why I have not committed crime inside of prison is not because I've changed,
교도관 선생님 총 들고 있으니
but it's because those guards, they have guns walking around.
인도를 받고 다스림을 받을 때
As long as I'm being led and guided,
인생은 가장 깨끗해지고
life becomes most clean,
행복해진다는 사실을 알았어요.
and I came to realize that that's when you become most happy.
그래서 2003년도에 출소했을 때
And so when I was released in 2003,
몸이 교도소 밖으로 나왔습니다.
my body physically left the prison.
제 마음에서 한 번도 교도 출소한 적이 없어요.
But inside of my heart, I've never been released from prison.
인도를 받고 다스림을 받는 게 축복이라는 사실을 알았어요.
I came to realize that being ruled and being controlled over is the most blessed life.
이제 개념이 그때 하나 바뀐 거죠.
That's when a certain concept of mine changed.
근데 모든 재수자들은
But all prisoners,
나 마약 끊었어.
hey, I've quit drugs.
나 범죄 안 해.
I'm not going to commit crime.
나가면 자기 마음대로 합니다.
And as soon as they go out, they do whatever they want.
남의 얘기 안 듣습니다.
They don't listen to other people.
그때부터 저는 제가 교도소에서 저희 어머니가 면회 왔어요.
And so when I was in prison, my mother, she came to visit me.
저희 어머니가 면회하는데 딱 10분만 더 달라고 사정했습니다.
And so my mother came to visit me and she said, please just give me 10 more minutes.
교도관이 안 된다고 했습니다.
And then the guard said, no,
저는 들어와야 됐습니다.
I have to then come back in.
저는 교도소에서 그렇게 다스림을 받았어요.
I had to be controlled like that when I was in the prison.
제가 나가서도
Even when I
인도를
got,
받고 다스림을 받으면
even if I were to get released, if I'm led and also guided,
내가 선생님을 만나서 인도를 받고 다스림을 받으면
if I'm able to meet an instructor and be led and be guided,
내 삶이 행복해지겠다는 생각이 들었어요.
then I came to the thought that I would be happy.
나와서도 저는 제 마음대로 하지 않았습니다.
That's why when I was released, I didn't act however I wanted.
자, 인도를 받고 다스림을 받았습니다.
I was led and guided.
그리고 제가 교도소 안에 이 마인드 교육을 배웠는데요.
I learned about this mind education while I was inside the prison.
제가 조금 마인드 교육에 대해 조금만 설명하겠습니다.
I'd like to introduce to you a little bit about this mind education.
네, 제가 얼마 전에 한국에서 있었던 사건이었어요.
This was an incident that took place a little while ago in Korea.
어떤 사람이 고층 빌딩에서 자살을 했는데
There was a person who committed suicide off of a tall building.
자살한 이유가 하나 있었습니다.
There was a reason why this person committed suicide.
이제 대형 사고를 나기까지는 분명히 이유가 있겠죠.
You know, up until such a big incident like this to take place, there must be a lot of phases, right?
그 이유를 보니까는 이분이 의대생이었는데
And so when you look at the reason why, this person was a medical student,
의사 시험을 쳤는데 떨어졌다는 이유였어요.
and so the reason for her suicide was she took the medical test and she failed.
그래서 충격을 받은.
So she was shocked.
이분은 학교 다닐 때 늘 1등만 했어요.
And this person had always been first place at school.
이제 공부를 잘하는 사람들이 가지고 있는 특징입니다.
This is the kind of special trait to all the people that study well.
자, 늘 1등만 하는 사람들은
The people that have only gotten first place,
한 번 떨어지면
when they fall once,
일어서지를 못합니다.
they're unable to get back up.
저도 학교 다닐 때 늘 1등만 했거든요.
And so even when I was in school, I was always first.
항상 1등을 했습니다.
I was always first.
여러분 저 뭐 무시하지 마십시오.
Everyone, don't despise me, okay?
저는 어디 갔는지 1등했습니다.
And so no matter where I went, I was always first.
제가 지금 박사 아닙니까?
And so I'm a doctor now, right?
항상 저는 뒤에서 1등했습니다.
I was always first to the end.
항상 뒤에서 1등했습니다.
I was always first from the end.
시험 치면 밥 먹듯이 떨어졌어요.
And so whenever I took tests, I always failed them.
하도 많이 떨어지니까
Because I failed them so many times.
이제 사람이 시험에서 떨어지면은
And so when a person fails a test,
자주 넘어진 사람들은 안 넘어지는 방법을 터득합니다. 아니, 넘어질 때 안 아프게 넘어지는 방법을 터득합니다.
people who fall oftentimes, what they do is they develop a way where they can fall without hurting themselves too badly.
그리고 다시 일어서는 법.
And then they learn how to get back up.
한 번도 넘어져 보지 않은 사람들.
People who've never fallen before,
한 번 넘어지면 일어설 줄.
once they fall once, they're unable to get back up.
자, 우리가 인생을 살 때 늘 똑바로만 걸어갈 수는 없습니다.
While we live our lives, there can be no way where we always walk straight.
살다 보면 넘어지고 실수하고 죄도 지을 수 있다.
As we live our lives, there are times where we fall, make mistakes, and even commit sin.
실수하고 죄 짓는 게 중요한 게 아니고
And so, committing sin and also making the mistakes is not the important thing.
넘어졌다가 다시 일어서 걸어가는 게 중요하죠.
What's important is after you've fallen, to be able to get back up and continue walking
자,
again.
이거는 의사 시험을 쳤는데 떨어졌다는 이유로 마음이 상했습니다.
This person took the medical test and eventually failed, and she felt heartbroken.
두 번째,
Secondly,
이거는 교도소에서 누가 만났습니다.
this is a person that I met inside the prison.
군대에서 총기 난사를 했는데
And so he did a shooting raid inside
총기
the
난사를 해서
military
많은
base.
사람 죽였습니다.
And so while he did a shooting raid, many people died because of that.
저는 오늘 내가 왜 범죄자들이 형성이 되는지 그 근본적인 원인에 대해 좀 제가 설명을 하려고 합니다.
And today I'd like to explain to you exactly the source of the reason why these criminals come to be.
자, 이 대형 사고 뒤에는 반드시 원인이 있죠.
Behind such a great incident as this, there's always a reason why.
근데 사실은 그 원인을 보면 아주 작은 거였습니다.
However, when you look at the reason, it's something very small.
아주 작은 거였습니다.
It's always something very small.
이 친구는 군대에서 주위에 있는 동료들로부터 무시를 받았다는 이유였습니다.
And his reason was that he was being ignored by some of his comrades inside the military.
혹시 여러분 중에 무시 받아본 적 있습니까?
Have you ever been ignored before?
한번 물어보겠습니다.
So I'd like to ask,
어떤 일로 무시를 받아봤습니까?
and so for what reason were you despised before?
My straightness. Because I was straight.
누가 엄격이? 네네. 하여튼 이분은 주위에 있는 동료들로부터 무시를 받았다는 이유로 마음이 상했습니다.
And so because of the fact that he was despised by his comrades, he felt so heartbroken in his heart.
그리고 군대 제대 딱 6개월 앞두고
And so then, just 6 months before he was dispatched from the military,
그냥 제대를 하려고 하니까 너무 억울했습니다.
and so then just to be able to come out of the military, he felt so wronged in his heart.
그 총기 난사해요.
So he went on a shooting raid.
수없이 많은 사람이 죽었습니다.
Numerous people died.
문제는
Everyone, the problem is,
제가 두 사람을 비유를 했는데
and so then I just gave the example about 2 people.
첫 번째 사람은 의사 시험을 쳤는데 떨어졌다는 이유로 이제 마음이 상했죠.
The first person felt heartbroken because of the fact that he failed the medical test.
두 번째 사람은
Second,
주위에 있는 동료들로부터 무시를 받았다는 이유로 마음이 상했습니다.
because of the fact that he was despised by his comrades, his heart was broken.
자, 마음이 상하면
When you're heartbroken,
이제 마음의 상처로 진행이 됩니다.
then it continues on to be a wound in the heart.
자, 마음의 상처가 아물지 않으면
And so if that wound is not able to heal,
마음의 병으로 진행이 되죠.
eventually becomes the disease in the heart.
마음의 병이 치료가 되지 않으면
And when that disease is unable to be healed,
대형 사고를 부릅니다.
then eventually calls upon a major incident.
사실 이 대형 사고의 뒤에는 아주 처음에 작은 이유였습니다.
And so when you look behind these major accidents, it's always a small reason.
의사 시험을 쳤는데 떨어졌다는 이유로
Just by the fact that he took a medical test and he failed the medical test,
주위의 동료가 무시했다는 이유로
just by the fact that he was despised by his comrades.
그리고 또 여러 가지 이유가 있겠죠.
And of course, there are other various reasons.
아버지, 어머니가 이혼했다.
Let's say the mother and father got a divorce.
저 같은 경우는 가난했기 때문에
In my case, because I was poor,
마음이 상했습니다.
that's why I felt heartbroken.
그래서 그걸 해결하기 위해서 도둑질했습니다.
And then I went around stealing to be able to resolve that matter.
이렇게 여러 가지 이유가 있습니다.
So there are various reasons just like this.
그럼 왜 사람은 자꾸 마음이 상할까요?
Then why does a person's heart continue to become heartbroken?
마음이 상하는데도 원인이 있습니다.
There are reasons why the heart is broken.
아니 네가 나 무시했잖아.
Hey, you despise me.
내가 사실 떨어졌잖아.
Hey, I failed the medical test.
그건 어디까지나 표면적인 이유입니다.
And so up to a certain extent, those are only just outward
이제
reasons.
자주 마음이 상하게 되는 근본적인 원인이 있는데요.
However, there is a source to all of this.
그거는 마음이 약하기 때문입니다.
And that's because the heart is weak.
자, 여기 이제 계란이 있습니다.
Everyone, let's say that there's an egg here.
자, 계란을 주먹으로 치면 깨집니까? 안 깨집니까?
Everyone, if you hit the egg with your fist, will it break or not?
네, 깨집니다.
Yes, it will.
왜 깨지죠?
Why?
약하니까.
Because it's weak.
근데 이 벽돌을 치면요.
However, if you hit this
벽돌을
brick,
치면 손이 아픕니다.
if you hit this brick, your hand hurts.
벽돌은 안 깨지죠.
The brick doesn't break, right?
그래요?
Why?
강하니까 안 깨집니다.
Because it's strong.
사람의 마음도 그렇습니다.
Same goes for the person's heart.
사람의 마음도 강한 마음이 있고 약한 마음이 있습니다.
Within the person's heart, there is a strong heart and there's a weak heart.
이제 사람의 마음이 약한 사람하고 같이 사는 것처럼 피곤한 게 없습니다.
And so there's nothing more tiring than having to live with a person with a weak heart.
그리고 마음이 약한 사람들이 대형 사고를 치고 범죄자가 되고 교도소 가게 됩니다.
And then the people that have the weak heart, they eventually commit the crimes and they commit the great accidents and they end up in prison.
그럼 우리는 왜 마음이 약해졌을까요?
Then why is it that the heart became weak?
자, 얘 누굽니까?
Who is this?
항상 정답은 쉽습니다.
And so the answer is always easy.
누군지 아십니까?
You know who this is?
네?
본인이에요.
맞췄습니다.
Yes, that's right.
정답은 항상 쉽습니다.
And so the answer is always easy.
제가 젊었을 때 이렇게 몸이 좋았다는 뜻입니다.
And so it shows that when I was young, this was how good my body was.
젊었을 때 이렇게 몸이 좋았으면 좋겠다는 생각을 했습니다.
And so I always had to wish that my body would be like this when I was young.
문제는 이제 제가 무슨 얘기를 하려고
But the
그러냐면
thing is, what I want to talk about,
제가 교도소에서 1년 동안 투병 생활했습니다.
and so then while I was at the prison, I was there for a year,
제가 몸이 안 좋아 죽을 병이 걸렸어요.
and I had this fatal disease that could not be cured.
제가 마음에 죽음이 딱 찾아오니까
And when this death came to me,
살고 싶은 마음이 강하게 일어났습니다.
I had the strong desire of wanting to then live.
제가 1년 동안 투병 생활 하니까는 몸의 근육이 다 풀려버렸습니다.
And so then, when I was going through this disease throughout that year, all of the muscle of my body was released out of me.
그래서 제가 기도했습니다.
And then I prayed.
하나님 한 번만 살려주십시오.
I said, God, please save me once.
한 번만 살려주면 저 이렇게 살고 싶지 않습니다.
Please, if you just save me once, I will not live this life ever again.
하여튼 하나님 제 기도를
And
들으셔가지고
so God eventually heard my prayer,
제가 몸이 좋아졌습니다.
and then my body became much better.
지금 굉장히
And
건강한데요.
I'm very healthy now.
자, 제가 1년이 지나고 나서 제가 운동장을 뛰었습니다. 살고 싶어가지고
And so because I wanted to live, a year later, I ran in the field.
운동장 반 바퀴를 뛸 수가 없었어요.
I was not able to run half the field.
왜냐면 근육이 다 풀려버렸어요.
Why? Because there was no muscle in me.
제가 살고 싶어서 오늘은 반 바퀴만 뛰자.
And so I said, I want to live today, so I'm just going to run half of this field.
내일은 한 바퀴 뜁니다.
And then I'm going to run a full lap tomorrow.
모레는 한 바퀴 반을 뜁니다.
And then tomorrow I'm going to run a lap and a half.
제가 조금씩 운동량을 늘렸습니다.
And little by little, I began to increase the amount of exercise that I did.
그리고 1년이 지났습니다.
And then a year had passed.
1년 지난 뒤에 어떤 일이 일어난 줄 아십니까?
After a year had passed, do you know what took place?
제가 무려 운동장을 30바퀴, 40바퀴 뛰고 있었어요.
I was running 30 to 40 laps.
1년 전에는
A year ago,
반 바퀴를 못해요.
I was not able to I could only run half the lap.
1년 뒤에 제가 80배 일하고 있었어요.
But then a year later, I was doing 80 times the amount of work.
도대체 무슨 일이 일어나게 돼요?
What took place?
저는 1년 동안 꾸준하게 운동을 하면서 근육을 키워줬어요.
Because throughout that entire year, I continued to exercise very hard to be able to increase the amount of muscle.
자, 근육이 자라면
When your muscle grows,
많은 운동량을 소화시킬 수 있는 능력이 생기죠.
Then you come to have the capability to be able to take in a lot of exercise.
그렇지 않습니까?
Right, everyone?
마음도 그렇습니다.
Same goes for the heart.
마음에도 근육이 있습니다.
There's also muscles to the heart.
자, 마음의 근육이 약한 사람이 있고 강한 사람이 있는데
There's some people that have strong muscles and weak muscles.
마음의 근육이 없는 사람과 같이 사는 것처럼 피곤한 게 없습니다.
And so there's nothing more tiring than have to live with somebody who has no muscles in their
자,
hearts.
계란은 작은 일에 충격을 받습니다.
And so the egg, even at a small shock, it gets broken.
모든 범죄자들은 마음이 약합니다.
And so all criminals, they have weak hearts.
그래서 아무것도 아닌 일에 신경질 나고 짜증나고 화가 나고 분하고 억울하고 있어요.
And that's why they feel frustrated, enraged, angry, and wrong over small little bitty things.
작은 일에도 마음이 상처를 받는 거죠.
And they receive scars even from the smallest things.
의사 시험을 떴는데 떨어졌다는 이유로,
Just by the fact that they took a medical test and they failed to that.
주위 동료들 나를 무시했다는 이유로
Just by the fact that my comrades had despised me.
마음이 상한 거.
Their heart
나
becomes
같은 경우
hurt.
가난하다는 이유로.
Just for me, in my case, because I was poor, I stole.
그러면 마음이 약한 사람들은 작은 일에도 어려움을 겪고 문제를 겪습니다.
People with weak hearts, they experience difficulty and problem even over the smallest matters.
자, 마음이 근육이 강하면
But when the muscles of your heart are strong,
수많은 어려움을 감당할 수 있는 힘을 가지게 되는 거죠.
you are then able to have the ability to take in numerous amount of difficulties.
자, 마음의 근육이 강한 사람이 행복을 누리는 겁니다.
The people that have the strong muscles in their hearts are able to live a happy life.
자, 그럼 왜 마음이 약해졌느냐?
Then why has the heart weakened?
마음이 약해지는데도 원인이 있죠.
And so there's a reason as to why the
자,
heart was
어렸을
weakened.
때부터 피하는 마인드를 가졌을 때
Ever since he was young, when he has a heart to flee,
부담스러운 일을 피하고
trying to flee the burdensome things, flee from hardships,
어려운 일을 피하게 되면
and then when you try to avoid difficulties,
마음이 근육이 약해집니다.
and that's when the muscles of your heart becomes weak.
그래서 마인드의 세계를 아는 부모님들이 자식을 키운 거라고
And so the parents who know about the world of the mind, as they take care of their kids,
이런 마인드의 세계를 모르는 사람들이 자식을 키우는 건 굉장히 다릅니다.
and then when parents who don't know about the world of the mind take care of their kids, there's a complete difference.
부모님들은 자식을 사랑합니다.
Parents love their kids.
자식들을 키울 때 이
When they take care of their kids,
마인드의 세계를 아는 부모님이 어떻게 자식을 키우냐면
the parents that know about the world of the mindset, how do they take care of their kids?
자, 우리 젊은 청소년들은 어렸을 때 잡아주는 게 굉장히 좋다는 거예요.
They say that our young kids, when they're taken care of at a young age, then they become very good.
자, 아이들이 엄마 메이커 신발 사줘,
Let's say when the child says, "Oh, I want a name brand shoe.
컴퓨터 사줘,
Buy me computers.
핸드폰 사줘,
Buy me a cell phone."
막 욕을 합니다.
And so they start cursing.
그럼 마인드의 세계를 아는 부모님들은
Parents that know about the world of the mind,
아이들의 요구를 5개는 들어주지만
they listen to 5 of their requests,
5개는 거절해줘.
but then 5 of them they reject.
그래서 스스로 그 문제를 해결할 수 있는 문제를 만들어주는 거죠.
And creating actually problems so that they're able to resolve those problems on their own.
부담스러운 일을 부딪히고 힘든 일을 만들어주는 거예요.
Creating difficulties and also burdensome things for them to be able to clash and fight against.
그래서 마음의 근육을 만들어준다는 거죠.
Creating the muscles of their heart.
이 마음의 근육이 만들어지면
When the muscles of the heart are created,
아이들의 마음속에 어떤 어려움이 많은 어려움들을 감당할 수 있는 힘을 가지게 되는 거예요.
then no matter what difficulty or problem they may come, they're able to have the muscles to overcome them.
근데 마음의 근육이 없으면
However, if there are no muscles of the heart,
부모가 해달라고 한 대로 다 해주면
and if you just do whatever the child asks,
부모는 자식을 못 이기잖아요.
then the parent can't ever defeat the child.
부모 자식들을 사랑하니까 해달라고 다 해줘.
Because the parents love their children, that's why they just do whatever the children ask.
근데 그러면 마음이 약해지고
But if that happens, then their heart becomes weak.
이런 아이들은 앞으로 사회생활에 뛰어들었을 때
And when these kids later on they jump into society,
적응하지 못합니다.
they're unable to adapt.
그래서 거기서 범죄자들이 형성이 되기 시작합니다.
And that's where a lot of criminals are then formed.
근데 마음을 근육들을 키워주기 시작하면
However, when you start to strengthen their muscles of their hearts,
사회생활은 험난한 사회생활이잖아요.
And the life in society, it's a very rigorous path.
언제 태풍이 몰아붙이고
You have no idea when there will be storms.
언제 거친 파도가 오고
You don't have no idea when there will be big waves.
예상치 못한 일을 많이 만나는 것이 사회생활이라고.
The life and society are full of unpredictable things.
이 마음의 근육을 키워주면
And so when you start to strengthen the muscles of the heart,
이 아이들이 빨리빨리 사회생활에 적응이 들어가죠.
then these students are able to quickly adapt into society.
그래서 마음이 약해지는 이유는
And the reason why their hearts become weak
어렸을 때 부담스러운 일을 피하고 힘든 일을 피하고 살았기 때문에.
is because when they were young, they avoided and they flew from the difficulties and the burdensome things.
지금부터라도 우리가 늦지 않았습니다.
And when even now, it's not too late.
조금씩 부담스러운 일 시작하고 힘든 일을 시작하게 되면
As you start the burdensome and also difficult things little by little,
마음의 근육이 자라기 시작합니다.
that's when the muscles of your heart begin to grow.
마음의 근육이 자라면
When the muscles of your heart begin to grow,
많은 어려움을 감당할 수 있는 힘을 가지게 됩니다.
then you come to have the strength to overcome great difficulties.
네. 제가 영상 하나만 보겠습니다.
So we'll just watch the video.
심심할 것 같으니까.
That you'll be a little bored.
한국은 일본에게 36년 동안 식민 생활했습니다.
And so Korea was actually a colony of Japan for 36 years.
그리고 우리가 미국의 힘에 의해서 해방을 받았습니다.
And eventually, due to to the help of the Americans, we were able to be set free.
그리고 6.25 전쟁이 있었습니다.
And then afterwards, there was the Korean War.
전쟁을 통해서 우리나라는 완전히 잿더미로 변해 있었습니다.
And due to the war, our entire nation turned to be a pile of ashes.
대한민국은 전 세계에서 가장 가난하고 비참한 나라가 대한민국이었습니다.
And so Korea at the time was the most poor and most pitiful country in the world.
그때 당시 GNP가 67불이었습니다.
And at the time, the GNP of the nation was $67.
지금은 약 한 3만 달러.
And so currently, it's a little over $30,000.
전 세계에서 가장 빠른 속도로 발전했죠.
So it was able to develop in the shortest amount of time.
우리나라가 이렇게 발전할 수밖에 없었던 이유가 딱 한 가지가 있습니다.
So there's only exactly one reason as to why our nation was able to develop so quickly.
이 몇몇 사람이 가지고 있는 마인드.
Because of the minds of few people.
이 마인드가 바뀌면
When the mind changes,
300배, 500배 일을 하기 시작합니다.
it's able to do 300, 500 folds of the work.
우리나라는 국토의 70%가 산이기 때문에
And because almost 70% of our entire national terrain is mountains,
전혀 자원 자체가 없습니다.
there are no natural resources.
그래서 발전해야 될 가능성이 없는 거예요.
And that's why there's no possibility for it to be able to develop.
근데 우리는 커피를 수출하고 있습니다.
However, we're currently exporting coffee.
우리가 커피가 하나도 안 나오거든요.
There's no coffee that grows in that land.
커피는 남미나 아프리카에서 나오죠.
Coffee grows in the lands of South America or in Africa.
우리나라 커피 수출도 3위입니다.
However, currently Korea is number 3 in coffee exports.
커피가 하나도 안 나오는데 수출 3위지.
And so, even though there's no coffee, how is it able to be number 3 in coffee exports?
커피 원두를 사왔습니다.
What it does is it brings in the original coffee beans,
미국 사람 입맛을 연구하고
and then they try to make it suitable for the American taste,
러시아 사람 입맛을 연구하고
and then also they start suitable for the Russian taste,
독일 사람 입맛을 연구했습니다.
and also start looking into what's suitable for the German taste.
전 세계 다 입맛이 다 다르잖아.
Each and every person has different taste buds.
그게 다 맞게 보는 것 같습니다.
What they do is they boil to the point where it's just right for them,
수출했습니다.
and then they go and export
자,
them.
우리나라 석유가 안 나오잖아.
There is no petroleum that grows in Korea.
석유 원유를 사왔습니다.
They bring in the original petroleum,
이걸 정제했습니다.
and they go and refine it,
그래서 팔았습니다.
and then they go and sell it again.
자, 우리나라가 가장 비참한 나라인데
Everyone, South Korea was the most pitiful nation.
우리나라가 발전할 수밖에 없었던 이유가 이 몇 사람의 마인드인데요.
However, the reason why it was able to develop so quickly was because of the mindset of several people.
아까는 이제 잘못된 마인드에 좀 설명이 들었고요.
Before then, I explained a little bit about the wrong mindset,
올바른 마인드에 대해서 조금만 여러분께 말씀드리겠습니다.
and I'd like to explain to you a little bit about the right mindset.
여러분 혹시 현대라고 아십니까?
Everyone, do you know about Hyundai by any chance?
네, 현대,
Hyundai.
현대, 현다이
Hyundai.
아시죠?
Yes.
이번에 현대그룹의 정주영 회장이 있어요.
And so that's President Jung Ju-young of the Hyundai Motors Company.
성공한 사람은 성공할 수밖에 없는 마인드가 있어요.
And so people that are successful have the mindset that can only make them successful.
실패하는 사람은 실패할 수밖에 없는 마인드가 있어요.
And the people that fail have the mindset that can only make them fail.
자, 이분이 가지고 있는 마인드가 있었어요.
There was a mindset that this person had.
사업가는 신용이 생명입니다.
And so for entrepreneurs, credibility is life.
신용을 생명처럼 얘기하는 거예요.
He is a person that considered credibility to be his life.
이분이 한국에서 최초로 다리공사를 시작했어요.
And this was the person that started the very first bridge construction in South Korea.
생애 처음으로 다리공사를 하니까 너무 공사가 서툴었습니다.
And so when starting this work and building the bridge for the first time, he wasn't good at it.
그리고 1년이 지나고 2년이 지났어요.
A year passed and 2 years passed.
물가가 6배가 뛰었습니다.
And all of a sudden, the prices rose 6 times.
완전히 부도 위기에 걸린 거예요.
And they came to the position where they had to file for bankruptcy.
자, 이 보통 사업가들이 이 부도 위기에 몰리면 하는 결정이 있습니다.
Usually entrepreneurs, when they get to the position of failure, then there's something which they do.
자, 우리 가족들을 먹여 살리기 위해서 돈을 빼돌립니다.
In order for them to be able to feed their people, they just try to grab money from all sorts of places.
그리고 부도를 내고 있어요.
And then they eventually file for bankruptcy.
이분은 그렇게 하지 않았어요.
This person did not do so.
반대로
On the other
모든
hand,
가족들의 돈을 끌어모았습니다.
what he did was he brought in all of the money of the family members,
끝까지 다리 공사를 공시켰는데
and then he finished the construction of the bridge till the end.
이 다리 공사가 끝나고 나니까 완전히 다 망했어요.
And after having done this bridge construction, he had completely failed.
자, 미국도 춥지만 한국도 겨울은 굉장히 춥습니다.
And of course, America is very cold, but also in Korea, once it gets to winter, it's very cold.
자, 영하 15도, 16도 내려가죠.
And it goes down to negative 15, 16 degrees Celsius.
눈보라치는 날,
And so on days when there's a snowstorm,
집 한 칸이 없는 집 한 칸이 없어요.
and so he had no room,
다리 밑에 벌벌 떨고 지냈어요.
and he was under the bridge shivering,
너무너무 비참했어요.
and he was in such a pitiful state.
이분의 인생 중에서 가장 힘들고 어려운 시간이 그때였다.
He says that that's the most difficult and hard time that he spent in his life.
근데
But
이 일이 현대가 만들어지는 계기가
this becomes the way to be able to build Hyundai.
이 일이 소문이 났습니다.
And this eventually the news spread.
야, 현대 정주행 회장이 무슨 일을 맡기면 끝까지 책임을 다 지고
Hey, they say that for President Jung Ji-young, no matter what you entrust to him, he will finish it till the end.
이게 소문이 났습니다.
That's what started getting out to people.
그러면 현대 일거리가 들어오기 시작했습니다.
And that's when a lot of jobs started coming into Hyundai.
지금의 현대는 정주행 회장이 가지고 있는 마인드를 만들었습니다.
And currently, Hyundai was now founded on the mindset of President Jung Ji-young.
이분이 여러 가지 사건들이 있었는데요.
And he had several incidents.
그때 당시 우리나라가 가장 어려웠을 때
And at the time when our country was most difficult,
대통령이 가지고 있는 생각이 하나 있었어요.
there was a mindset that the president had.
우리는 달러를 많이 벌어야 해.
He said that we need to earn a lot of dollars.
우리나라는 자원이 없으니까.
Because we don't have any natural resources.
그래서 우리가 중동 건설 현장에 뛰어들고 싶었어요.
And so they wanted to jump into the Middle East construction sites.
그래서 옆에 계신 분들이 안 보이지만
And so of course you can't see the people that are around him,
장관들이 있어요.
but they were the ministers.
장관들 소집을 하고
And so he started bringing in ministers.
나는 달러를 벌어야 해.
He says, I have to earn dollar money.
그래서 우리 국민들 배부리 하고 싶어.
And I want to feed and make my people full.
우리가 해외에서 죽더라도
Even if we were to die overseas,
우리 자식들에게 이 가난을 물려주지 말자.
let's not pass on this poverty to our kids.
그 장관들에게 중동 건설 현장에 갔다 오라 했어요.
And so then he told all of his ministers to be able to go out to the construction sites out in the Middle East.
장관들이 사우디 현장에 갔습니다.
And so then the ministers, they went out to Saudi Arabia.
갔다 와서 대통령이 보고했는데요.
And so then after they went there, they came back to the president, they gave a report.
각하 안 됩니다.
Your Excellency, we
세
can't do
가지
it.
이유로 반대했어요.
There were 3 reasons as to why they had rejected this.
왜 안 되냐?
The reason why they cannot,
나는 달러를 벌어야 합니다.
I have to make dollar money.
세 가지.
3 reasons.
거기는 날씨가 너무 덥습니다.
They said, first of all, it's too hot over there.
자, 60도가 넘는 살인적인 더위 때문에 도저히 일할 수가 없습니다.
Because of a killer heat that's over 60 degrees Celsius, they say they cannot do the work.
60도가 넘으면 일할 수 있을까요?
If it's over 60 degrees Celsius, would you be able to do any work? Yeah.
오해했습니다.
Says no.
두 번째,
Secondly,
그 물이 없습니다.
there's no water.
사막에 물이 있어야 무슨 일하죠?
And so there has to be some sort of water in the desert to be able to do any work.
물 없으면 일할 수 있습니까?
Could you do any work if there's no water?
No, could be.
네, 오해했습니다.
No.
세 번째,
Third reason,
술과 여자가 없습니다.
there is no alcohol and women.
술과 여자가 없으면 할 수 있습니다.
And so if there are no alcohol and women, would you be able to do the work?
No.
아내를 너무 사랑하십니다.
And so you love your wife too much.
그래서 우리나라가 돌아갑니다.
You know, this is why our nation runs.
이 세 가지 이유로 결사 반대를 했는데
And so these were the 3 reasons why they had rejected this.
다시 정주 회장을 불렀습니다.
And eventually they called over President Jung Ji-young again.
내가 장관들을 보냈는데
I sent the ministers out there,
세 가지 이유로 결사 반대를 했어.
and they say for 3 reasons they're unable to do this work.
나는 자네를
I trust you though.
마지막으로 한 번만 더 갔다.
Please, could you go one last time?
똑같은 현장을 갔습니다.
He went to the exact same site.
똑같은 현장을 갔다 와서 정주 회장이 각하 너무 좋습니다.
He went to the exact same site and he came back and says, Your Excellency, this is such a great place.
우리 달러 많이 벌었습니다.
We will be able to earn a lot of dollar money.
대통령이 깜짝 놀랐어요.
And then the president was shocked.
이스라엘 사람은 날씨가 60도가 넘잖아.
Hey, they say that it's over 60 degrees Celsius over
그래서
there.
어떻게 일을 해?
How can you do any sort of work there?
각하 됩니다.
Your Excellency, we can do it.
우리는 낮에는 잠자고 밤에 일합니다.
We can sleep during the day and work in the evenings.
밤에 너무 시원하고
It's so cool during the evenings.
항상 정답은 쉬워요. 그죠?
And so the answer is always easy, right?
그죠? 알고 나면 쉬워.
Right? Once you get to know the answer, it's so easy.
모르면 너무 어렵잖아.
When you don't know, it's hard.
두 번째,
Secondly,
그리고 거기는 건설을 하려면 모래가 필요하고 자갈이 필요합니다.
and they say that in order to be able to do the construction work there, you need the sand, you need gravel.
그 사막에는 모래가 천지고 자갈이 너무 많다는 거예요.
And so they say in that desert, all it's filled with is sand and gravel.
그리고 거기는 365일 동안 비가 안 오는데.
And then there's no rainfall for 365 days out of the year.
그리고 우리 365일 동안 일할 수 있다.
And that means we can do work for 365 days out of the year.
너무너무 행복한 대통령.
And then the president was so happy.
그럼 물을 어떻게 할래?
He said, what are you going to do about the water then?
각하 됩니다.
Your Excellency, we can do it.
물 없으면 우리 바닷물 정수해서 먹습니다.
If we don't have water, we can purify the seawater and bring it in.
바닷물은 많이 있습니다.
There's a lot of seawater over there.
이분이 바닷물을 정수하는 법을 터득한 거예요.
And he developed a way to be able to purify the seawater.
현대 제철소를 운영하면서
In order for him to be able to run the Hyundai company,
이 용광로 속에서 새 철판이 나오는데
and so then there is these iron pieces that come out of the furnace.
이걸 식힐 곳이 없어서 바닷물을 맞춰.
And so because there's no place to be able to cool it down, they go and drop it down in the sea.
수증기가 올라오는.
And so then there's this mist that comes up.
이게 정수가 됐다.
And then that became actually the purified water.
대통령이 너무너무 행복했어요.
And so the president was so happy.
그럼 마지막으로 술과 여자는
Lastly, what are you going to do about alcohol and women?
그래서 됩니다.
That's why we can do it.
노동자들이 쓸데없는 돈 안 쓰고 100% 달러를 보내주세요.
These laborers, they won't waste their money for these useless things, and they will send in their money 100%.
그래서 달러 많이 벌 수 있어요.
That's why we can earn a lot of money here.
그래서 우리나라가 중동 건설 현장에 뛰어들어서
And that's why South Korea was able to jump into the Middle East construction sites,
사우디 해변가에 어마어마한 정수 시설을 만든 거예요.
and then they established so many filtration these systems around the Sea of Saudi Arabia.
어마어마한 물을 정수를 해가지고
And so then they're able to filter the water in so many different ways,
도시 곳곳에 물을 공급합니다.
and then they're able to supply water to all these different parts of the city.
네, 대수로 공사를 해서
And as they were able to work with large amounts of water,
사막에 도시를 세우기 시작하는데
that's why they're able to establish a city in the desert.
1874km.
And 1,874.
네. 지구상에서 가장 큰 역사라고 합니다.
And so they say that this is the largest in all the world.
그래서 사막에 어마어마한 도시를 건설했어요.
And that's why they're able to build such a large city in the middle of the desert.
엄청난 달러를 벌어요.
And they're able to earn tremendous amount of dollar money.
자, 한 사람의 마인드가 바뀌면
However, when the mindset of one person changes,
한 사람 몇몇 사람의 마인드가
and so the few mindsets
우리
of
엄청난 일들을 하는 걸 봤어요.
the mindsets of few is able to do tremendous amount of work.
장관들이 가지고 있는 마인드가 있었어요.
There was the mindset of the ministers.
마인드 교육이 특별한 거 아니잖아요.
However, the mind education isn't anything special.
각하 안 됩니다.
Your Excellency, it doesn't work.
날씨가 더워서 안 됩니다.
It's too hot, so it doesn't work.
물이 없어서 안 됩니다.
We can't do it because there's no water.
술과 여자가 없어서 안 됩니다.
Because there's no alcohol and women, thus we can't do it.
안 됩니다.
We can't do it.
안 됩니다.
We can't do it.
안 됩니다.
We can't do it.
이 잘못된 마인드.
They have this wrongful mindset.
정주영 회장은
How about President Chung Ju-young?
됩니다.
He says we can do it.
낮에는 잠자고 밤에 일하면 됩니다.
We just sleep during the day and work in the evenings.
물 없으면 바닷물 정수해서 먹으면 됩니다.
If we don't have water, we can go in and filter the water from the sea and then drink it.
노동자의 달러 다 보내주면 됩니다.
And we can go and send in all the laborers' money.
됩니다.
We can do it.
됩니다.
We can do it.
됩니다.
We can do it.
이게 정주영 회장의 마인드.
This was the mindset of President Chung Ju-young.
재수사 가지고 있는 마인드가 뭡니까?
What's the mindset of many of the prisoners?
안 됩니다.
I can't do it.
네? 안 된다고 생각하니까 돈 훔쳐오거든요.
Because they think that we can't do it, that's why they have to go and steal money.
이 물고기는 코이라는 물고기인데요.
Everyone, this fish is called the koi fish.
이 물고기를 어항 안에서 키우면 5cm에서 8cm가 자랍니다.
They say that if you take care of this fish inside of a jar, then it grows only to about 5 to 8 centimeters.
자, 똑같은 물고기를
And you take the same fish,
연못에서 키우면
if you take care of it in a pond,
25cm가 자랍니다.
it grows out to be 25 centimeters.
자, 똑같은 물고기를
And you take the same fish,
강물에서 키우면
take care of it in a river,
120cm 대어가 됩니다.
And it goes even further than 120 centimeters.
자, 이 똑같은 물고기가 어디에서 자라냐에 따라서
Depending on where this fish is taken care of,
피레미가 될 수도 있고
it can be a small little thing
대어가 될 수 있어요.
or it can be something grand.
우리나라를 퇴보시키는 사람들이 있었어요.
And they were the people that were trying to bring down our nation.
그리고 우리 경찰들을 퇴보시키는 사람들이 있고
And there were people that were trying to take down our police.
우리 교정청을 퇴보시키는 사람들
There were people that were trying to take down our correctional facilities.
우리 회사를 퇴보시키고
Then also take down our
우리
business
가정을 망하게 하는 사람들
and bringing our family to failure.
그 사람들은 누굽니까?
Who are such people?
주어진 일에 충실하고 사는 사람.
These are the people that are only obedient to the things which are given to them.
예, 날씨가 더워서 안 돼.
Oh, the weather is too hot, we can't.
물이 없어서 안 돼.
There's no water, we can't.
술과 여자가 없어서 안 돼.
There's no women and alcohol, we can't.
장관들은 자기 생각이란 어항 안에 자기 수술을 가둬놓고 살았어요.
These people, what they do is they confine their thoughts inside their jars and they can't do any of the work.
지금 우리도 마찬가지입니다.
Same thing with all of us.
제주사람만 그런 게 아니고
Not just with
우리
prisoners,
생각이란 어항 안에 수술을 가둬놓고 살 때 굉장히
but
많습니다.
there's so many times that we confine ourselves inside of our own
아이
thoughts.
부담스러워.
Oh, it's too
난
burdensome.
못해.
I can't do it.
싫어.
I don't like it. I'm not going to do
우리는
it.
생각이라는 어항 안에 갇혀 있는 동안은
As long as we're confined inside of these thoughts,
피레미로 인생을 마칩니다.
eventually we end our life in the failure.
근데 정주영 회장이 가지고 있는 마인드가 뭐였어요?
But what's the mindset of President Chung Ji-young?
모든 사람이 불가능하다가는
When all people said it's impossible,
다리 공사에 뛰어들기 시작했어요.
he jumped into the bridge construction.
그리고 중동 건설 현장에 뛰어들기
And he
시작했어요.
jumped into the Middle East construction sites.
자, 불가능한 상황 속에 뛰어들어 보니까
When he jumped into the impossibilities,
자, 한 가지 발견되는 게 있었어요.
there was one thing that he was able to discover.
우리 속에 엄청난 능력이 있다는 사실을 발견하게
He
됐어요.
comes to realize that there's tremendous power inside of us.
우리 안에 어마어마한 능력이 있습니다.
There is tremendous amount of power inside of
자,
us.
정주영 회장에게도
Even inside of President Chung Ji-young,
장관들에게도
and even to the ministers,
그리고 여러분에게도
even to all of you,
우리 제수자들에게
and even to our prisoners.
어마어마한 능력이 있습니다.
There is tremendous amount of power.
이 엄청난 능력이 언제 나타나기 시작하냐면은
When will this tremendous amount of power be expressed?
불가능한 상황 속에 뛰어들었을 때
When we've jumped into the impossibilities.
아무리 무식한 사람,
No matter how ignorant that person may be,
아무리 나쁜 사람,
no matter how evil of a person he may be,
잘 배웠냐 못 배웠냐 전혀 상관이 없어요.
whether he is well learned or unlearned, that's not important.
한계 밖의 일들 가운데 뛰어들어 보면
When you go out, when you jump into the things which are outside of your boundaries,
그때 우리 속에서 어마어마한 능력이 그때 나타나기 시작합니다.
that's when tremendous amount of power will be expressed from us.
그렇지만 우리에게 엄청난 능력이 있지만
However, even though we contain such tremendous power,
이 생각이라는 어항 안에 갇혀 있는 동안은
but as long as we're captured inside these thoughts,
아무 능력이 나타나지 않습니다.
there is no power that comes out of us.
제수사들이 왜 범죄를 합니까?
Why do prisoners commit crime?
어려움이 왔을 때,
Because when there's a difficulty,
문제가 왔을 때,
when there's a problem,
우리에게 어마어마한 능력이 있는데
even though we have tremendous amount of power,
이 문제를 해결하기 위해서
in order to resolve this problem,
도둑질하고
they steal
강도질하고
and they rob
사기치고
and they con.
이렇게 흘러갑니다.
This is what they do.
자, 우리는 이미 이제 결정을 내려야 해요.
Everyone, we have to make a decision.
이 생각이란 어항 안에 갇혀서 그냥 피레미로 인생을 마칠 거냐?
Are we going to end our lives in failure just being confined inside of our own thoughts?
우리가 한계 밖의 일들 가운데 뛰어들어서
Are we
우리 속에 어마어마한 대어로 인생을 마칠 거냐?
Or are we going to jump into things which are outside of our boundaries and end our life as grand as it is?
여러분이 선택하는 거예요.
That's something which you choose.
꼭 우리가 이 제수자들이 교육을 드려야 합니까?
And do we really have to do this education for the prisoners?
절대 그렇지 않습니다.
Not so.
내가 수없이 많은 나라를 가봤는데
And I went to numerous different countries.
경찰관들, 교도관들 잘못된 마인드를 가지고 있는 분들이 굉장히 많습니다.
There are a lot of police officers and also guards who have the wrong
이
mindset.
사람의 경찰관의 잘못된 마인드가 온 국민을 불안에 떨게 만들었어요.
And so the wrong mindset of such police officers, it brings the entire nation to insecurities.
물론 제수자들도 교육을 받아야겠죠.
Of course, the prisoners have to be educated as well.
저는 교도소 안에서
However, inside the prison,
그리고 출소하고 나서
after I was released,
저는 선생님에게 이 마인드 교육을 배웠어요.
I learned about this mind education from my teacher.
이 마음의 세계를 배우면서
When I learned about the world of the heart,
옛날에 16년 동안 내가 교도소 안에 살았잖아.
and so I've been inside the prison for 16 long years.
제가 20살 때 이 교육을 받았습니다.
If I had received this education when I was 20,
20살 때 그때서 이 선생님 만났습니다.
if I had met this teacher when I was 20,
내 인생 그렇게 망가지지 않았을 수 있어요.
my life would not have been ruined like that then.
굉장히 제 마음에 안타까운 마음이 들었어요.
And really, I felt such at a loss at the time.
그래서 나가면 내가 재수할 일 사고 싶었어요.
And once I get released, I wanted to live for the prisoners.
몇몇 가지만 우리 마인드의 세계를 배우면
Only if we learn a few bits about the mindset,
굉장히 행복하게 살 수
we
있는데
are then able to live such a happy life.
마인드 교육이 특별한 겁니까?
Everyone, is mind education something special?
우리 속에 어마어마한 능력이 있다는 사실을 깨우치는 겁니다.
It's just coming to the realization that we have tremendous power within us.
절대 범죄하지 않습니다.
Then they will never commit that crime.
근데 우리가 이 생각이나 어 안에 갇혀 있어요.
However, as long as they're captured inside their own
그래서
thoughts.
인생은 너무 불행하게 살 수밖에 없는데
And that's why people have no choice but to live such a miserable life.
자, 이게 장관들이 가지고 있는 마인드겠어요.
This was the mindset of the ministers.
날씨가 더워서 안 됩니다.
It's too hot, we can't do it.
물이 없어서 안 됩니다.
There's no water, we can't do it.
술과 여자가 없어서 안 됩니다.
There's no women and drinks, we can't do it.
안 됩니다.
Can't do it.
여러분이 혹시 많이 쓰던 단어 같습니다.
Everyone, is this a language or is this a word that you've used often?
그렇지 않습니다.
Isn't that right?
오늘 이후로
After today,
여러분 마음에서 안 된다는 단어를 지우십시오.
erase the word, I can't do it.
아시겠습니까?
Understand, everyone?
그리고 한 달만 그렇게 살아가세요.
And live like that just for 1 month.
꿈같이 행복한 시간을.
You will live such a happy life.
자, 정주행 회장이 가지고 마인드.
The mindset of President Chung Ji-young.
네, 낮에 잠자고 밤에 일하면 됩니다.
Yes, we can sleep during the day and work in the evenings.
물 없으면 바닷물 정수해 먹으면
If there is no water, then we can go and filter the seawater and we can drink that.
됩니다.
We can do it.
됩니다.
We can do it.
됩니다.
We can do it.
자, 다 같이 한번 따라합시다.
Everyone follow after me.
할 수 있습니까?
Can you do it?
안 되겠습니까?
Will it not work?
자, 한번 해봅시다.
Let's try this together.
자, 됩니다.
We can do it.
됩니다.
We can do it.
두 사람 안 했어요.
2 people didn't say this.
두 사람.
Just 2 people.
그냥 불행하게 살려고 작정한 사람이에요.
And so, I guess they choose to live a miserable life.
나도 교도소 가야 된다니까.
And so then, eventually then, you have to end up in prison.
마지막 기회 한번 주겠습니다.
I'll just give one more chance.
큰 소리 한번 합시다.
Let's say it out loud together.
됩니다.
We can do it.
됩니다.
We can do it.
네, 평생 그렇게 사십시오.
Everyone live like that for the rest of your lives.
자, 안 된다는 단어를 주고 여러분이 한 달만 그렇게 살아요.
Erase the word that I can't and live like this for just a month.
꿈같이 행복한 시간을 보냈습니다.
You will live such a happy life.
그러면 평생 그렇게 사는 거예요.
And then you can live like this for the rest of your life.
제가 원래 강의 제목이 반격이에요.
And so the title of my topic lecture today is counterattack.
이 선생님이 저 반격을 가르쳐줬는데
And so this teacher, he taught me how to counterattack.
반격이 뭐 세상에서 가장 위대한 싸움꾼이 누군지 아십니까?
Do you know the greatest fighter in the world is?
내 마음에서 절망적인 생각이 올라왔을 때
Whenever there are despairing thoughts that arise within me,
그것과 싸우는 사람,
the person who fights against that,
전 세계 가장 위대한 사람.
that person is the greatest in the world.
슬픔이 왔을 때
When there's sadness,
아니야, 기쁜 거야.
no, it's something to rejoice about.
가장 위대한 싸움꾼.
That's the greatest fighter in the world.
오늘 안 된다는 단어 지웠습니까?
Everyone, have you erased that word, I can't?
그럼 뭘 해도 꿈같이 행복한 시간 보내는 거라고 생각해요.
Then I believe that no matter what you do, you will live such a happy life.
제가 가지고 있는 핸드폰이 이게 갤럭시 9입니다.
Everyone, the cell phone that I have, it's a Galaxy 9.
6개월 전에 샀는데요.
And I just bought this 6 months ago.
지금 갤럭시 10이 나왔습니다.
And so now they've released Galaxy 10.
그럼 내년에 뭐가 나옵니까?
What's going to come out next year then?
갤럭시 11 나옵니다.
Galaxy 11 will be released.
혹시 삼성 핸드폰 가지고 계신 분 있습니까?
Anyone here have a Samsung phone?
없죠.
Okay.
만약에 이게 내년에도 갤럭시 10이 나온다. 어떻게 되겠어요?
Let's say that next year there's another Galaxy 10 that's released.
삼성은 망하는 겁니다.
Then Samsung fails.
했던 일을 또 하면 망하는 겁니다.
If you do the same thing you did, you fail.
삼성은 끊임없이 새로운 제품을 만들기 시작했어요.
Samsung continues to create new products,
한계 밖의 일들 가운데 뛰어들기 시작했어요.
doing things that are outside of its boundary.
그래서 인터넷에 최고를 달릴 수 있어요.
And that's why it's able to run, it's able to be first in the things which it does.
자, 우리도 마찬가지입니다.
Same thing with all of us, everyone.
했던 일을 또 하는 것은 망하는 거예요.
And for us to be able to do the same thing over and over again, that calls for failure.
이 한계 밖의 일들과 뛰어들었을 때
And when we jumped into the work that's outside of our
여러분
boundaries,
속에 어마어마한 능력이 나타나요.
then tremendous power will be shown out of you.
마인드가 바뀌면
When your mindset changes,
300배, 500배 일을 하기 시작합니다.
you're able to do the work that is 300, 500 folds of this.
그래서 저는 제주자들에게 이 교육을 가르치고 싶었어요.
So everyone, I wanted to be able to teach this mindset to all of our prisoners.
제주자가 가지고 있는 특징이 있죠.
And so there is a certain characteristic to the prisoners,
다른
right?
사람은 고생해서 월급을 받습니다.
Other people, while they work hard, they get their income.
제주자도 취직시켜 봤습니다.
And so you bring in prisoners and you put them to work.
직장에서 갈등이 있으면 때려치워버립니다.
If there's some sort of problem that happens inside the workforce, then they just quit.
야, 나 전과자라고 무시하는 거야?
Hey, are you despising because I have a bad report, criminal report?
때려치워버립니다.
Hey, I'll just give up, I'll quit.
그러면 고생 안 하고 돈 벌 수 있는 방법은 뭡니까?
And so then, how are you able to make money without having to go through rough things?
남들이 고생하고 돈 벌고 훔쳐오고 도둑질하고
What you have to do then is steal, and you have to take away from those who are working hard. You're doing the work of robbery and stealing.
쉽고 편한 길을 가려고 하는 사람.
The people that want to walk in the easy and good, the easy way for them.
거기가 범죄자로 형성이 됐습니다.
That's where criminals are formed.
저도 옛날에 그렇게 살았습니다.
That's how I used to live.
근데 제가 선생님 만나면서
After meeting this teacher,
제가 마인드 교육을 들으면서
And
굉장히
after-
제 과거 후회가 됐습니다.
after receiving the mind lecture, I was really regretful about my past.
자, 우리 아무리 많은 이 강한 마음을 가지고 있어, 좋은 마인드를 가지고 있어도
Everyone, even if we have such a great mindset,
사실은 선생님의 인도를 받아야 합니다.
the truth of the matter is that we have to receive the guidance of the teacher.
아무리 많은 기능을 가지고 있어도
No matter how many capabilities you may have,
우리를 여러분을 이끌 수 있는 인도자가 필요합니다. 사실.
we are in need of a leader to lead us.
그러면 여러분이 가장 행복한 시간들을 보낼 수 있을 것 같고,
If so, then you're able to have the happiest times.
하여튼 이 마인드 교육을 통해서
So through this mind education,
많은 제수자들이나 또 경찰관들이 행복하게 살았으면 좋겠습니다.
we truly ask the many prisoners and also even police officers for them to be able to live happy lives.
마치겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to take a brief 5-minute break. And during the 5 minutes, we'll set up the panels and get ready for our second session, which is our panel discussion. So at this time, please, 5-minute break as we rearrange everything to get ready for the panel discussion. Thank you. All right, everyone. Welcome. We're now here, ready to begin our panel discussion. In the audience, I would like to just give a brief format of how we want to go ahead and run today's panel. There were specifically 4 questions that I was given to start off with. And there are 4 members of our panel who we were able to get the question to ahead of time. So when I ask that question, I'll have the person who will prepare their answer to answer first, and then I'll open the floor to other people in the panel. Either I'll call you specifically by name, or I'll give you a chance, whoever would like to answer that question. I will get through about 4 or 5 questions. That's all I have prepared, and then once we get a pretty good amount of information from our panelists, I'm going to open the floor to the audience to ask any question that they feel they would like to expound on any of the 5 questions that I will be asking the panel, and then we can take the dialogue from there. So just to let you know, there's a lot of years of experience on this panel, so there's a lot of wisdom that I think we're going to be able to gain from this discussion. But there's 2 things that I want to talk about here, is how we can deal with the problem of the youth, but also the issue of how we as a community can help serve the police officers and correction officers as well. We want to do it both ways. So we want to open up this discussion. So first, I will begin. The first question that I would like to address to the panel is, what are the problems that the youth in your specific area that you're policing are facing? And why do you think, and what are the causes of these problems? So I think the first officer who was able to get the question ahead of time is Officer Ahmad Kespa from the Nassau County Police Department. So we would like to open the questioning with a response from Officer Ahmad.
Hello, everybody. Here's a mic.
There's a mic here.
Thank you for having me. Just a little bit about myself. I have 14 years in a job between NYGD and Essex County. I'm currently assigned to Community Affairs, so I work countywide. Next to me,
I got a 12 years old job between NYPD and Madison County. I'm also in community affairs. He's my partner.
so the biggest problem we have in the county is drugs and gangs. So, you know, that answers the question. How we, do you want me to?
Oh, so what do you think are some of the causes for these problems?
Well, part of the problem I think a lot of the kids face, this is a different time in social media. They can't get a break from that part of the world. If they're struggling with something, whether it's at school, a lot of times I remember I would come home and I got away from that if there was something I was struggling, because there was no social media. So I could go home and just lay outside, give my mind a rest with something that I was struggling with. And that's a big issue that they're facing in the schools, whatever problems it is. Now they come home and those problems are now on their phone. And a lot of times they turn to drugs or turn to gangs maybe as a form of acceptance. And it's something I think that we're trying to figure out how to combat as a way to give kids maybe that mental break from something they're struggling with.
Okay, so I would like to also open the floor to Lieutenant Derek Walker, because he has such expertise as we're working with the Juvenile Aid Bureau, if he would like to address this question as well.
Okay, I believe my colleagues out here, they basically hit it on the head. That's the main problem. You know, in Hempstead we have Latin gangs. We have some gangs that are been around for several decades. But one thing that we see is the same thing for either side. The Latin gangs, you know, there's issues why kids might choose to join a gang. A lot of it's intimidation, it's fear. It's also sometimes to be cool, to be part of a group, or have someone that supposedly cares about you. You know, there's a lack of some situations in the home where they may not have a strong family structure, and that causes many young people to seek out what the gang can allegedly give them. They don't realize the harm that it can bring them. There's a language barrier, and it's a comfort zone. If, it's easy to be friends or associate with people who speak your language or you feel comfortable with. And those things lead to young people making poor decisions, in my opinion, about joining a gang, you know, about being part of that lifestyle. And usually when they're new to a gang, they're demanded to do certain actions which are illegal, assaults, robberies, various crimes, and then they end up turning and getting into the system.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to maybe contribute to that question? Or we can move on to the next one. Yes, please. There's a mic. Down.
I'm Chief Robert Appian from Bergen County Juvenile Detention Center. I have over 26 years of experience. Most of it would be in Monmouth County, where I serve lieutenant. Most of my years in juvenile detention have been in a supervisory or management capacity, all about 4 years. Some of the problems facing the youth are mental health issues, lack of parenting, like I have a lot of single parents, so there's no parental guidance. Sometimes a single parent is not always a female, sometimes a single parent is a male. As it pertains to gangs, it's location, the problems that we face in location. So if you live in this project as opposed to that project, you're never going to get along. Where we have to separate them in the facility. And if they come together, anytime they come together, it's going to be a fight. So in order to protect themselves, even the kids who are not really involved have to arm themselves with firearms. It's a dangerous, very serious situation, and it doesn't seem as though it is being addressed. But if we want to address it, we have to start in the schools. An ounce of prevention is worth 1,000 pounds of cure or 1 million pounds of cure. So if you can get them in schools and get them to stay away from the people who are pulling them into the gangs because their mom or dad is a single parent working long hours, unable to be with the kids, and that's when the gang members are able to make them these false promises, give them the bad ideas. Oh, you're young, if you kill someone, you go to juvenile, and you come home. But that's not so. In New Jersey, from 15 years old, a juvenile can be waived till adult status. Age 15. Before they only had 30 days to file a waiver. Now it's 60 days, so it's a little bit tougher for these young people, and it's no light at the end of the tunnel that can be seen right now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Please. Is there please pass on the mic?
My name is Alexi Acevedo, and I am a chaplain of Suffolk County Police Department. We have been fighting with the gangs, MS-13, especially in Brentwood, where I live. The reason why the president came here is because of that. So I'm working with Deputy Commissioner Briscoe Lewis to try to prevent. We're trying to create progress. We're trying to open opportunities. One of the police, they just mentioned that one of the problems is the language barrier. So we have that problem over here. They came over here, I'm from El Salvador, and sometimes they cannot communicate. Sometimes they get like these gangs, they get the opportunity to reach it before us. We have been working in schools with Deputy Commissioner Briscoe Lewis, and we have been getting these kids out of the gangs. So recently, we're working with the program. It's called Brentwood Youth Recovery Team. Today, we have a meeting this morning with Briscoe Lewis, and we have a committee that we're working already with some programs that are already open. So these kids, we're trying to fight so we can, avoid it to go to the gangs. How we're gonna do it? Prevention. We're gonna do it before the gangs get them. We're gonna try to get them, to meet so they can get to the drug program. So we try to resolve the transportation programs and all that, to get involved, create everything, or not creating, but sometimes like putting pieces together, because there are already progress already in the community, but the kids don't know. But we're going to take them. We are associated with the schools, district. We are associated with different part of the community that they're already there. We just have to communicate with the kids and take them to the program so they cannot go to the games.
Thank you very much. So I guess the conversation has actually already led into the next question, which is what are some of the strategies that your departments and that your programs are being used to resolve these problems that you just addressed now. First, I would like to address this question to Police Officer Andrew Tepper of Suffolk County Police Department to start off that question.
Hi, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good. Great. Thank you. Just a little bit about myself first. I've been a police officer now for a little over 8 years. I spent most of my career in the 2nd Precinct in Suffolk County, which is Huntington Station. And recently I just went over to Community Relations, and that's where I currently work right now in recruitment, trying to get people to sign up to take the test. In case anybody wants to sign up, But going back to the question that I was presented, what strategies do we have in solving the problems that people are facing in the area? Well, Suffolk County has started a program over the years where NASO, I believe, has the same thing, where we have our Youth Explorers, get the kids involved with the police. Sometimes with kids, nowadays, they always think as police as negative, where now we're trying to be in the schools more often. We have school resource officers. A lot of other counties, a lot of other agencies are doing the same thing. So kids do get familiar with seeing the police, and they don't always have a negative feeling towards the police. Just because you see a police officer in your neighborhood or in the school, it's not always a negative thing. It could be a positive thing too. I know I speak for myself, I'm sure my other colleagues here, when we're driving around the neighborhood and we see kids and they wave to us, that's the greatest feeling. It's a great feeling. Unfortunately, in certain areas, sometimes when we see kids around the same age, they're not waving. They're doing something else towards us. And, you know, that's not the best feeling. You know?
It's a salute. It's a salute.
Yeah, it's a salute. So we've tried doing Youth Explorer programs where the kids at the age of 14 up until the age of 20 can be involved with the police, doing different activities, helping out the community, get a sense of what the police are all about, helping their community, getting to know each other. Then we've also done a mentoring program where kids are able to spend the day with a police officer, kind of learn about them, what they go through daily. And then also we have what's called our Police Athletic League, where we're involved in different sports, different activities with the children, which is a big deal because certain kids don't have those capabilities, they don't have the resources to be involved in sports. So we're that little coach, we're that extra hand to give them a chance to participate. So,
oh, thank you so much.
If I could, I just want to add to something we're doing as well. We know Risco Lewis well. She's a very dedicated person who's working with our department as well. Some of our problems interconnect. You know, some of our gang members are out there in Brentwood, some are out here. You know, in Hempstead we have a large gang population. And one thing, we're starting out small, but one thing that's been very positive, we've seen at least a bit of change, is our youth program. It's a YPI program, a youth police initiative, where we've invited students that we've seen consistent problems, you know, those who are not attending school, those who are doing certain gang activity. And we invite them down to our station. We have an office up the block, and we invite them there. It's a program that runs for about 4 or 5 weeks at a time, and they're here with police officers in the evening for about 3 hours. We have lunch, food with them, we do activities, but it's not just us talking to them. It gives us a chance to hear what they have to say, what's going on in their world. You know, how's it going at home? What issues are you going through? How do you feel today? What made you feel good today? What made you feel bad today? And, you know, initially the first week or so, it was very quiet. But by week 2, week 3, they're engaging us in conversation. They realize that many of us have the same, or had the same problems that they may have had when they were younger. And with the program, we've had 3 sessions already, and only 1 child is going back to committing any crimes. So we feel pretty good with that. So it's, you know, anytime that, like you just said, anytime we can have kids, but anytime that we feel that just when that kid is saying hi to us, hey, what's up? You know, there's gang members that know me by first name, I know them by first name. And that's not my problem. I just don't want them to do the activities with the gangs. So we're trying to teach them that there's at least something, we've been through it, we can get through it. We try to help you as best we can, but it takes them to give a little effort too. But things like that are what we see positive results.
I'd like to also ask Officer John Bridgewood, who is the neighborhood coordinating officer from New York City Police Department in Brooklyn, and he would like to be able to shed some light on that as well.
How you doing? Officer Bridgewood, 6th Precinct, Brooklyn. I got 7 years on. We have a program called Youth at Risk. What we do is I go out and I pick 2 people, youth kids from 16 and younger, who have been arrested before. And what I do is I follow up with them, and I go to their house. I talk to their parents to see if how they're doing in school, if they're going and attending school. I see if they need help getting a job or something like that. That's where I come in. I do that every month, and I pick 2 kids, and sometimes I go back to the same kids if they've been rearrested. I also do a junior police program. It's from kids from like 7 to 14, and we all join up in the community center in the projects. And what I do is I teach them how to be a police officer. We go and we do drills, and they do the academic part and everything like that. And we can become a commissioner, doing different tasks, like doing 25 push-ups, doing 25 sit-ups, and then we'll go out and take them bowling to kind of help them out. One of the things that we helped out with the kid was there was a pet larceny thing that was going on with 3 kids going out and they're stealing from the store. One of the kids came up to me and said, the reason why we steal from the store is because we don't have money at home. So what I did, we got together and got the kid to go to a job application program, and now he is in Key Food, working at Key Food. Hasn't seen him for few years, we're gonna have trouble.
미국은 청교도들로 이루어진 나라입니다.
So America was founded on Puritans.
청교도들이 교육 제도가 있었습니다.
And so for the Puritans, they had an educational system.
청교도식 교육이 있었는데요.
They had the Puritan educational system.
미국이 가장 전 세계에 강한 나라가 될 수밖에 없었던 이유가 청교도식 정신 교육 때문에 그렇습니다.
And the reason why America was able to be the strongest nation in the world was because of the mindset of the Puritan educational system.
청교도가 어떻게 아이들을 교육시켰냐면
How did the Puritans educate their kids?
아이들이 태어났을 때
Is when the kids were born,
정확한 시간을 정해놓고 젖을 먹였습니다.
they designated an exact time to breastfeed their children.
그래서 아이들이 배가 고파다 엄마가 젖을 때까지 기다려야 됐어요.
And so even though the kids were hungry, they had to wait until their mothers breastfed them.
울면서 기다렸습니다.
They were crying and they waited.
그러면서 아이들을 정확한 시간을 정해놓고 밥을 먹이고 젖을 먹였는데
And so they fed them and they breastfed them at designated times.
그러면서 아이들에게 어렸을 때부터 자제력을 키워줬습니다.
And ever since they were young, they had been able to nurture their self-control, self-resistance.
강한 마음을 만들어줬습니다.
And that's how they're able to grow the stronger heart.
그 교육을 받고 자란 아이들이 이제 마약의 유혹이 오고 범죄 유혹이 아주 쉽게 끌려가지 않았습니다.
And so these kids, when they were able to have stronger hearts, and even though there were temptations of drugs and other negative things, they were not carried by them.
그래서 미국이 이렇게 잘 살게 되는 건 사실은 이 교육제도 때문에 그랬습니다.
And so the reason why America was able to be so well off is actually because of the educational system.
미국이 어느 날 이제 교육 제도가 바뀌게 되죠.
But one day the educational system changes.
벤자민 스파크 박사가 우는 아이에게 제국 이름 불려라.
And so there was the professor by the name of Benjamin Sparks, and he published a book saying, "Give the pacifier to the crying baby."
이 책이 베스트셀러가 됩니다.
This becomes the bestseller.
아이들이 울면 제국이 물리면 되지.
Oh, when the child is crying, just give it the pacifier.
엄마도 편하고 엄마도 일하기 편하고 아이도 좋고 그러잖아요.
And so that's much easier for the parents, and also that's easier for the child.
그게 지금은 좋습니다.
That's good as it is right now.
아이들이 해달라는 다 해주니까는.
Because whenever the child asks for it, you just do whatever it asks for.
이제 스포크식 교육을 받고 자란 아이들이 자제력을 상실하게 되고.
And so students that were grown under the older educational system, eventually they were able to have greater self-restraint.
절망이 오면 절망이 끌려가게 되고.
But then eventually they was broken apart. So whenever despair came, they were carried by despair.
마약의 유혹에서 마약의 유혹이 쉽게 끌려가게 되고.
And whenever there was the temptations of drugs, they were easily carried by drugs.
범죄 유혹이 쉽게 끌려가게 되는 거예요.
And they're easily carried by crime.
그래서 이 마인드 교육은 사실 청교도식 교육에서 나온 겁니다.
And that's why this mind education actually originated from the Puritan educational system.
제가 생각할 때는 마인드 교육을 통해서 어렸을 때부터 아이들 교육을 제도를 바꿔야 된다고 생각합니다.
And so for me personally, I believe that ever since the children are young, we have to change the educational system so that they're able to learn the Puritan mindset.
원래 미국은 청교도식 교육법으로 자랐습니다.
Americans originally were founded on the mindset of the Puritans.
저는 그렇게 하면 그래야 된다고 생각합니다.
And so that's what I believe should take place.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to share? Yeah, at the end of the table.
We do have a program similar to what Suffolk has in its program. I'd like to piggyback what he said about reaching the kids before the gangs do. And I think that's very important. But before that, let me just backtrack. I've heard the term before, humanizing the badge. I know sometimes a lot of kids see a uniform. They don't see a person. I've dealt with kids. I remember I was talking to some kids, and I'm a big basketball fan. They couldn't believe that I played basketball. I said, "You play basketball?" And when I was a youth officer in the city, I made it a point to go out to the local rec center because I knew there were kids in the area causing a few problems. Some of them were in gangs, not the best kids in school. I would go there and just play basketball. After a while, I built a relationship with these kids. And they found out I was a cop. They were all shocked. Like, a cop that plays basketball, it's crazy. I was able to recruit a number of those kids to play on the local basketball team in my precinct. And through that relationship, they looked at me more as a person than, oh, this is the cop. I can't really deal with this guy or talk. That positive influence is what we want. Something like the Explore program, where they get to interact with a cop on a different level. As a parent myself, you want nothing more than your child to be in an environment where they're going to be in a great environment where they can grow and get positive influence. And there's tons of services that have that. The challenge and what we're trying to figure out is how can we reach them before a negative influence does.
Also, we have 2 other programs that we actually get involved with the schools. One program called GREAT, which stands for Gang Resistant Education and Training. We have a team of 5 cops that go to certain schools where there's gang problems, and they pretty much, each cop's assigned to anywhere between 4 to 6 schools in each district, and they pretty much become part of the school, and they become like a mentor for the kids, and teaching, and there's a curriculum for each grade, pretty much telling them, gang is not the best choice, in life. And then the other program that we have is called Too Good for Drugs. That the Commissioner Wright is trying to implement countywide. That's something new we're working on right now. Pretty much we get trained by a foundation called the Mendes Foundation. That's countrywide. We get trained by them, then we go out and we train the teachers to take that back to the school and train the kids, and pretty much there's the Too Good for Drugs teaches 5 essential social and emotional learning skills. One is setting reachable goals, making responsible decisions, bonding with pro-social others, identifying and managing emotions, and communicating effectively. So it's not just about drugs, it's about those 5 things, and I think it's a great program. It's a way to proactive and react.
Okay, so now I want to bleed into the other question I wanted to say. We have not only kids who have been involved in these kind of problems, but also, as mentioned by Officer Greenwood, that there are certain kids called at risk. So these at-risk kids are facing a lot of challenges. So as we listen to our speaker today, Pastor Kizan Kim, who actually was in a correctional facility, to get back out, dig your way back out, that's not a very easy task. So the question I have here is, what are some of the difficulties that these at-risk kids face? We're talking both who are on the outside, but also who are already in the system. What are some of the difficulties that they face in the system, and also when they try to get back out or they try to maintain their life? And I would like to open this question to Chaplain Barbara, Chief of the Juvenile Detention Center in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, Robert Payne. If you could address this first.
Most of the at-risk kids would be economics and location, our geographical locations. So kids from inner cities, where the way of life would be crime, gangs. Once incarcerated, now you don't have enough money to hire a private attorney. So you're at the mercy of public defenders who sometimes do care, sometimes they don't. So if you cannot afford a private attorney to optimize your chances of efficient legal representation, the chances of incarceration becomes greater. Once incarcerated, there's not much transition when you're released from being incarcerated to go back into the community. For juveniles, there's no halfway houses, or there's no transition. So you go from one extreme back to the other. The detention centers or jails or whatever you want to call them, they do not really rehab. They're not rehab facilities. So what would a kid learn there? Either to get, or most times to become harder as a delinquent, because juveniles don't call them criminals. So you become harder. You try to be what you are not. I have a case where a young man was, I can't mention names, was involved in a homicide, 15 years old, did not know the person who was killed. Just happened to hear about it, just wanted to be on it. And in our facility, he is showing the pictures of the deceased person. But yet he had nothing to do with the incident, does not really know the ramifications of doing what he's doing, because what he's doing is feeding the prosecution with ammunition to get an easy waiver. But there's no remorse. But he does not understand what he's doing. And like I touched on before, in the city, there seems to be a lot of mental health problems with the inner city kids. For some reason, I do not know. Some people think it is because of chemical abuse. When I say chemical abuse, I mean drug use. Some think it is passed on through parenting. It is a very serious, it's almost like an academic. Juvenile justice system or the family courts does not really like to incarcerate juveniles with mental health, but because of the severity of the offense, there are no other options. So you're finding a lot of juveniles are being locked up with mental health, and most of them are from at-risk neighborhoods, which are usually inner cities. And like I said before, there's no transition from a locked up facility back into the community, so you're going right back from where you came.
But something I'm sure you guys know, Nassau County, they do something here that's called diversion. If a juvenile is arrested, diversion is there's action taken by probation prior to them going to court. So they're not before a judge. There's an alternative that could be given, maybe some type of clean up a church parking lot for 2 Saturdays, or do some other action that avoids you from going before a judge or being held in some type of youth facility. Also, you know, in New York State, they just raised the age of a juvenile. They went up 1 year this year, so now 16-year-olds are included. And this October, it's going to go up to 17. So anyone under 18 years old is going to be considered a juvenile in New York State by this October. And things are different how they're handled between regular criminal court versus family court that handles juveniles. So there is at least an option that some kids might get themselves in a little bit of trouble. They can take a pause, let's find a solution, maybe through counselors, other alternatives, you know, instead of putting them in a box, per se, because that usually is not a solution. A lot of these kids, bottom line, I feel just how you guys have said, they need people to interact with them, to actually take them by the hand. This is what you need to do today. You know, they need that guidance, and I think at least with diversion, that's guidance. When they meet officers like the two at the end here, like with us, we also do PAL. They didn't know I was a cop when I was playing basketball with them. They just thought I was a slow old man, but you know, but either way. But once they realize, you know, that we're not just going after kids. You know, that's not our goal in life. If we have 0 arrests for a year, we're happy. Unfortunately, that's not correct or not accurate, but we do have a bunch. But we do our best to limit it, but our ideal is to find a solution or give them force them into some type of program that they get the guidance and, you know, direction that they need. It seems like there's a lack of need for a lot of young people. Lack of direction.
Just to piggyback what the chief was saying before about the mental health, it goes back kind of to that social media stuff. Kids can't get a break mentally. Just get away. If you're dealing with stuff in school, maybe it's a bully, you come home and now that bully's writing on you, whatever, comments on that mental break is really important. I don't have the answers how to fix it, but I think it is a major problem. And then with the transitioning that the chief was saying, a lot of people, you come out of a detention center and right back to where you came from. I don't work in jail. I'm just a police officer. It's part of my pay grade. But I feel like there should be some kind of transition where maybe you're teaching them a set of skills, or something that when they get out, now they have an opportunity to further in something, as opposed to, okay, you're back out there and it's kind of just go back to what you know.
Okay, so I have our last question that I pre-prepared, and the rest I'm going to open you up to the piranhas in the audience. Well, actually, I'm joking. We have a wonderful audience, we have teachers and everything, but the question is about the officers. I know that there are two sides to every coin. To make the community work, it needs both the officers to be healthy and the community to be healthy. So the next question I have is, over the years of service, what are the difficulties that police officers face in dealing with these problems, and what are some of the strategies that you have used to support the officers themselves? I would like to open this up to Chaplain Barbara Williams Harris from the New York City Police Department.
First, good afternoon to everyone. I'm glad to be here with you. How many of you are from IYF? All of you? Okay, most of you, all right. Let me just give a quick background. They said we have 5 minutes. I'm a veteran of NYPD. I started in 1983 on patrol. I did patrol, I worked in 3A houses, I did warrants, and I ended up in community affairs before I left. I retired in 2003. Towards the end of my career, I was a chaplain, volunteer chaplain for the Guardians. That's one of the fraternal organizations inside PD, Police Women's Endowment, St. George, all of those different things. And I kept doing that after I retired. I also pastor a church in Brooklyn where I've been pastoring now 17 years. And so back in 2014, Commissioner Kathy Perez, along with the then Police Commissioner, Commissioner Bratton, asked me when I come back as the first uniform member to be a department chaplain. And I've been doing that since 2014. So I kind of understand both sides very well. One of the things I'd like to say, I'm hearing the different things about the youth and different things. It's important for you to know that we as police officers, and I still see myself as that even though I am a chaplain, but we as police officers, we don't have all the answers, and neither are we supposed to. That's number one. Number two, it takes family, it takes the church, or whatever your house of worship is, and it takes every other department that they interact with to make the difference. A lot of times, by the time the children get to us, it's because there's already been an issue. I believe in being proactive and trying to deal with them before. I believe that nothing changes unless there's a different mindset. The word my mother always gave me, you have to make the choice to want it to be different. But you also have to put people in their lives that give that. When you're talking, I'm going to get to the police in a minute, but when you're talking about young people, most young people want someone to give them boundaries. They want someone to show that they care. When I was in the police department before, I had a number of programs. I won't go through the names of all of them, but one program I ended up doing was called CCAP, Clergy, Community, and Police Dialogue, where we brought the community together. A lot of the youth would come to that, and I noticed that they were coming, they wanted to deal with the issues in their command. And so then I started taking those youth and I started training them how to be facilitators and moderators, because my background is as a teacher with the Board of Ed. So I started doing that with them. So the next time we had a session at a command, instead of me getting up being the moderator, I got up and introduced one of the youth. I started dealing with the youth. More and more of them came from the different precincts. And one of the things that we found out was that no matter where we went, they showed up. And so we came up with a youth leadership program. And I have been dealing with those kids since 1985. Many of them now are on the job, or they graduated from college, they had their own careers. The difference is we stayed with them. And for some of us, we were the extension in the home. Now that's not normal, and I'm sure those down here that work with youth know that a lot of times you give your own time, you pass your own hours, you're doing a lot of things that are different. And while you're trying to reach and make a difference with the youth, you still have to deal with your family. You still have to deal with on the job. You have to deal with arrests that are made. In the police department, in NYPD, there are 36,000 cops. As of right now, there are only 10 chaplains. And when we say chaplains, we're the ones that are employed by the police department. We also have clergy liaisons, which are volunteer chaplains within each precinct, and PSAs, police service area for housing, in the city. And the key is, we have to make the difference, but a lot of times we first have to start with us too. You ever been to the point where you help everybody else, but you forget you? So if you're not helping you, you really can't help anybody else. And so I grew up in a family of 11. I had a mother and father that were involved in the community. I grew up with 6 brothers, so I was comfortable being in sports and different things. But my parents stayed on top of us, and the honest truth is, we were more afraid of our parents than we were of anybody else. That's what it came down to. A lot of people aren't like that today, which is understandable. But one of the things, we have to teach it, and it has to come from the home. As a pastor, when youth join my church, one of the first things we do for the young men and the young women, we take them through an etiquette class. We make sure the young men know what it is to have manners, how to open the door for a young lady, how to pull out a chair, what it means. We bring the men in to talk to them. We bring the young ladies in. Because a lot of stuff that we say is going on with the youth, nobody's teaching it to them. So we're not teaching it, who are we to hold against that? The other issue is that with the police, especially, and I'm sure with Suffolk and Nassau and the different ones, we see things on a normal basis that most people don't see. And then we see this for 20 years straight. I went through 9/11. I won't even begin to talk about what that was like to go through that. And then on one hand, you're dealing with somebody as a chaplain, somebody had a death, you're dealing with that, and then you go over 2 blocks and then you gotta deal with somebody that's happy about something that happened in their life. So it's 2 different ends, and you have to have the balance. And that balance comes from, you gotta have the correct mindset to deal with it. So I know I'm hitting a lot of things, my 5 minutes is almost up. I just wanted to share that we all have to do it together. It's not one particular group, it's all of us. It's the family, the nucleus, the family, it's the house of worship, okay? It's the police department, it's us being proactive, it's us being out there. There were some kids, I went up to their schools to see about them. I would go up in uniform and go up to their schools to see about them. I wanted them to know that I cared. And so making the difference in somebody's life is beautiful, but you also got to make sure you're maintaining and giving balance for yourself. That's very, very important for us as officers, because the things that we see, we still have to deal with that. And so for a lot of us, home becomes work and work becomes home. So it's how to deal with that. So there's not one particular great difficulty. There's all kinds of difficulties depending on where you are and what you're dealing with. And I just want to add, we want to throw all of the social media issues at the youth. I just have to add on to that. It's not just the youth. It's grown folk on social media acting up just as much as some of the young people. And so I think we all have to take an account for the things that we say and we do. And instead of pointing a finger at any one particular person, do something different. When I came back to the job, I call him Bishop, but Sergeant Marcus Lewis is in the back. I started a Guardians Gospel Choir. It's a choir where the civilians and the uniform members can come and be a part. When I was on the job before, I ran a basketball league for 18 years. We did a talent show where the cops performed for the community and gave that money back for events that they were doing. But you still have to have relationship. You can have all the guidelines you want, you can have all of the rules and all of the regulations, but you must have relationship. That's what not just young people, that's what people are looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
When I was in the prisons, I learned about the mind education. I had the thought that I would never change. I had no idea what was wrong about me. However, when I was inside the prisons and I met with the IYF and learned about the mind education, I came to the realization that I've lived such a wrongful life. And for the first time in my life I was able to interact with the Mind education. And so to talk about a different subject, but inside of America we have the Native American reservations. And so there are the reservations and there are these protective areas for the Native Americans. And so while you're living inside these reservations, the government gives full support and they are there for them. And so even though they've been given support money and so they're given all the things which they need, and so by giving them support, we had thought that they would live happy lives. However, because even without having to do any sort of work, they're able to get full support and they get a bunch of money, people, they become lazy. And then with that, they start buying drugs. And they start gambling. And then drastically, their thoughts begin to weaken. And then afterwards, numerous people within the Indian reservations, they start to commit suicide. However, our IYF, we took the Mind education, we went into these Native American reservations. The Mind education, it gives you the strength where when there's despair, not to be carried by the despair, but to overcome it. Whenever there is the temptation of drugs and also of crime, the Mind education strengthens you so that you'll be able to have the strength to then overcome those temptations of crime. That's how the Native American reservation started to change. And so even though we gave them full support to be able to offer them help, but without having to do anything, they were able to receive full support. And that's why these people drastically became so lazy. Whenever there are difficulties, they don't have the strength to be able to overcome those difficulties any longer. Just like I spoke to you a little earlier, the Mind education, it starts to strengthen the muscles of your heart. And ultimately, you have to have strong muscles of the heart in order for a person to be happy. The person that is able to bear through so many difficulties throughout his life, he is the happy one. And so without having to go through any sort of difficulties, if you just give him full support, then that person continues to lose strength in his heart. And that's when whenever there's temptation of drugs, of crime, or of negative things, there's no way that this person is able to then overcome them. These kids, they're easily being dragged by these things. Into game addiction, into drugs, into crime. They're easily being carried into despair. And that's why I truly believe that we have to strengthen the muscles of their hearts. And once you receive the Mind education, the way of thinking becomes different. And that's why I believe that it brought such good results.
Thank you. So now we're going to open up some.
I just want to, he doesn't have to respond to this. This is just a rhetorical statement. I just think you have to be careful when you generalize and say Indians are lazy and people on reservations, because that's not necessarily true. So I have a little issue with that. I think you have to be careful with that. When you take away somebody's culture, when you take away somebody's lands, when you take their children out of their system and teach them in another system, it breaks down everything that happens. So everything that happens on the reservation is not just because everything was handed to them or because they're lazy. So I just think that's important for you to understand about American Indians. I just have to, I'm not here to fight you. I'm working with you, but I just need to make that clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now our audiences, I can see they've been taking notes like crazy. I think they have like a whole bag full of questions to ask all of the police officers here. So audience, you're free to address anyone on the panel specifically or generally. I know a lot of great points were made, a lot of great programs are currently being used and applied by the various police departments. So we're going to open it up to a few questions in the audience. Anybody who would like to ask a few questions will be able to, yes.
Hi, my name is Daniel Lim. I'm a managing director at a large multinational financial services institution. I'm also a volunteer for the International Youth Fellowship, and for many years now have been working with the youths in the ways that you've explained as well through your occupation. First of all, I want to recognize and thank you all for the service that you do, because I think sometimes it's easy for us to take for granted the fact that you go above and beyond to work for the community. And you mentioned many times, sometimes you're doing off hours, right? And we're all here to talk about, I think, what's a very serious situation and issue that faces not only our community today, but our community in the future. And so as a youth counselor and working with the youths on a regular basis, I find that sometimes I'm strapped for time, strapped for resources. I can't reach everybody. I can't touch everybody and impact everybody's lives. And Chaplain Williams-Harris had mentioned, it's a balance sometimes, right? Especially if I find that I'm doing more for others than I'm doing for myself. Within all those things, how do you see yourselves in terms of the resources that you have available to you? Aside from, the fact that there's only 24 hours in a day, right? And 365 days, or 24 hours in a day, it's not 25, exactly. Sometimes we wish it were, right? How do you find yourselves challenged with, the resources, whether it's just time or whether it's actual resources or manpower or the type of training? And what are those things that we can do as a community to work together to either, join forces and, increase our resources, whether it be manpower or through various different programs and initiatives where we can be useful and productive together. Just want to get some of your thoughts in terms of that.
I guess that one's open.
It's an open question for anybody.
I would just say you have to think outside of the box. As I said earlier, you have to be proactive. You have to look at the groups that are working in your community, the financial institutions. How many of them would be willing to come and help? Some of them, it's not always financial giving. Some of it is they're giving their time, or they're letting you use their facilities. So I'm always looking what else is out here that we can use to enlarge our territory, so that we can do more with the young people, or even with teaching parents. And it's important to understand, I was raised by two parents. When I had my son, I don't like to get into, I don't bash, but when his father left, I had to raise him. And I was raising a man child. But thank God I had a father, and I had 6 brothers that knew they were my resources. They knew how. I didn't think, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't care, I've been hurt. You got to let go of all of that. You got to forgive and let go and move forward. I needed to make sure that he grew up to be a man, and that he grew up to be a man who was strong and didn't hate himself or hate that part of him that wasn't any longer in his life. So you got to have balance, and I did it for myself and him, and it's something you have to be consistent with. I could not go out there trying to save the world, and I wasn't helping my own son. So that's where you really have to have balance, that you're making sure you're bringing him or her along with you. That's on a personal note.
So I guess it's safe to say that all of the represented police departments and correctional facilities, you are open to working with the community to create new initiatives, new programs. I can say that it's safe to say that we're all open-minded to the possibilities of this, am I right?
Definitely. Also, I just thought, I think there's many people who have good intentions, and obviously the police, we're concerned with manpower, cost, and so forth. But the community, I think there's many people out there that feel that they want to do good, they want to help. But coordinating that is the issue, and making it consistent is the issue. So, we all work with different organizations, and then for 2-3 months we're working together. then we for whatever reason, we're not working together for the next year or two. And those gaps, if there could be some way, and someone who has that ability, that coordination or organizational skills, to get people to consistently work together to solve problems, you know? And because you need to be consistent with whatever you do. You can't help a kid for 1 or 2 months and then forget about it, or him or her. So that's what I see as a need that could be generated from the community.
Yeah, we have a question.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Pastor Bridget Agweti. I am a pastor and also I'm the president of Productivity Enhancement Ministries based in the Bronx. I work with children in elementary school because I know most of the time we think these kids are very young and innocent, and we forget that only to deal with some things we should have taken care of before they got to middle school and high school. So I have a passion to work with younger children and their parents through a lot of programs that enhance them to become very productive and to be stable emotionally, strong physically, and have a very strong cognitive skills. I do science programs with them, I do technology programs with them, I do engineering programs with them, maths programs, literacy programs, I do parental skills, English as second language. I do Plumset Inspiration, which is working with community leaders, elected officials, to speak to the kids about their purpose and giving them hope and encouraging them that where they are is part of the story, it's not the end of the story. Most of these kids are very frustrated. And unfortunately, the parents, a lot of them need more help than the children. Because my program is in the heart of South Bronx. Most of the children live in transitional homes, shelters, and underserved community. So one thing that I see that really is helping in my program, apart from the robotics club that I do, science club, dance club, running club, and all of the other clubs we do, is a club that I called Godly Stars Club. And in this Godly Stars Club, the parents, they sign their children, they write, they sign the memorandum of understanding that allow the kids to be taught based on Bible principles. And I realized that a lot of children love it, a lot of parents want it. It is not enforced on everybody in our program. It's just an option that is given to them if they want to take advantage of that. And that has been the most successful impact that I have recorded. I have specifically a child who had a lot of truancy, and the principal had been having a lot of problems because most of my program is housed within the DOE facility. Even though we're CBO, we work with the schools to go to where the kids are and really impact them. And this child was having a lot of problems, with ACS, foster care, going from one place to another is really hard on this child. And then I remember I called this child and I told this child, I said, do you mind if I really be your friend? I said, nobody's ever going to be my friend because I'm very bad. I said, I want to be your friend to me, was the cutest thing I've ever seen. And Drew, I know that. And we started being friends. And all the whole story short, started telling me stories about his life and how he went to be with his dad, because dad and mom shared custody. And when daddy get upset, daddy would throw the chair, daddy would throw the table. Daddy, one time daddy broke TV because daddy was very upset. And sometimes when he's upset too, he wants to do that. So, to cut the whole story short, I said to him, I can pray with you. You know, God can help you. When you're angry, put your hand on your chest, say, Jesus, help me, and all of those things. Then this child that should have stayed back actually did so well in school, became so much at peace, and anytime I'm not around, say, where is Dr. Bridget? Oh my goodness. And the mother would always bring this child to the program. Why? Because it feels a sense of safety, it feels genuine, sincere love. Grounds, rules are set, boundaries are set, structure is provided in an atmosphere of love, not of condemnation. So I believe, as community-based organizations, as people who work together, beyond programs and goals, but with a heart that is genuine from God, understanding that there is something beyond the programs we provide. Programs can give mental accent, only God can change the heart. So I believe we need to allow options in our programs for people who want to take advantage of that. And I always say to them, don't forget to have the God factor working for you. And that's been very helpful. So that is my little contribution. And I can't wait to work with CLF so we can reach more schools, because they are much bigger and they have a greater capacity and influence. So when I heard about them, this is actually my first time attending the CLF, and I really look forward to working with them because what they're doing is awesome. And I believe they'll be very helpful to the community. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, but please, there's a lot of people who have questions, so yes, let's reduce that. So we'll have Ms. Blockett, and then right away we'll go to the gentleman here, and then I'll go to Roseanne. Okay?
I had a question for Paul, because no one called and we don't want to give you a chance to talk and share your heart, because that's what we do here. So I work with students, I'm not going to take any more time, I train new teachers. And you all know the Chancellor has a new initiative that we should ensure mental health in schools. So it seems that there are many institutions that are focusing on mental health, schools, and then that also makes me think about you all, because when we were talking about all the things that you have to go through, I saw like just your hearts looked really heavy, and everybody in the room felt very heavy. And I kept thinking about what it must be like to go through all of those things, but I wonder what your release is like what systems and programs do you have to help you to deal with your everyday stuff that you go through. So I'm going to ask Paul if you could share what that looks like, because we're speaking a lot about the youth and what the youth need, but we're also thinking a lot about what you need as well to help you to have the release, to help you to be able to do your jobs and still get the mental health support that you need.
Well, it's an interesting question because you'll get a different answer from everybody here, I'm sure. And everybody handles and processes things differently. And certain people may take things a little more personal, and something might upset you that might not upset me. So I guess to answer your question, I guess you're asking like, how do I decompress or relax or whatever? It's just basically spending time with my family, really. I go home, speak to my wife, my kids, and hanging out with friends and just being a regular person. You can't take the job home with you every day, and that's what some people have to learn. Certain things might upset you, and you might need to talk to somebody at home about it. But generally, you just need to go home and be yourself and just relax. That's how I deal with it.
every department has that. Every department. We have resources. I know Suffolk and Nassau does. We all have different support systems. Especially the chaplains unit for us at NYPD, we're part of their support system. There's PAPA. There's the early intervention unit, there's the employee relations, there's the counseling unit. I'm sorry, I was trying not to take the mic. There's the counseling unit. So we do have support, and then there's also a lot of times within the command that you work in, that command has its own culture and you end up becoming family. And there's also support among your own peers. So the support system, like I've been trained as a counselor, all of those different things. Others might not have had the training, but they have the natural gift and just being there to listen. For some of us, we just want somebody to listen and not interrupt us. Just let us talk, get it out, let us vent, and then we feel better. Then we'll go jump rope or whatever else we have to do.
But it seems like most of those support systems she's talking about is for like officers who are in need. I mean, it might not always be that, but it's just as a regular officer and your day's over, usually, you go about however you release and, go about relaxing. If an officer has something that's really bothering him and he needs to talk to somebody, then they'll reach out to some of the peer support groups and things like that.
That's why I said the family within the command. Sometimes it's family, sometimes those are the ones that become your best friend. They become your extended family. So a lot of them, that's who they go out and talk with and share with. And a lot of us that have families, we go back and deal with the family, or you're going back, you're going to another job because you got 2 kids in college. It's all kind of things. And so that's why there has to be a balance in how you do it. You have to have it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Muniz. I'm from the other side of the river. Born in Brooklyn, 69 Precinct. What street is that on?
Foster and Rockaway Parkway.
Okay, I used to play a PL at 68 Precinct, which was near St. Michael's. I think it was on 42nd and 4th, but I think it's been long gone. I think they moved it into Bay Ridge now. Anyway, I wear different hats in life. I'm a military chaplain, pastor of a church for nearly 28 years. And I first want to say, foremost, I want to thank each of you from my heart for the work that you do. Many days, it's thankless. I get that. Thank you. I think it needs to be said. I have family members that are police officers, and I don't envy your job. Okay? So you have our prayers. In terms of prioritizing, because I think in terms of systems, and I think one of the problems we have in America is that we have a lot of silos, and we don't cross over. I would like 3 things. What can our community do to support you? Thank you. 3 things.
I would say to get involved. Give you an example, Lieutenant Warner here, he runs the PAL also, and a lot of times he spends his free time playing basketball with kids and things like that. He can't always do that. He has a family of his own. He might put in, his days he might be putting in 16 hours at work. He comes in early in the morning, then, he ends his day by playing basketball at 8, 9 o'clock at night. And, what happens the days that he can't be there to do it? So, what we really need is just more community involvement. If we got people involved in some of the activities and, mentoring kids and helping kids, that would go a long ways. Because as what he was saying earlier about resources, I believe every department is stretched with resources. Right. It's finding overtime monies or even volunteers to do stuff. It costs a lot of money. So resources are very important, and that's one of the biggest resources we need is the community involvement, just to help out.
Second? Is that 3?
I was hoping somebody else would come up with 2 or 3.
The use of facilities is very important. Whether it's corporate or a church that has a basketball court, or we might want to do a day of stress-free training for police officers and opening up your house of worship or your corporate office where we can bring them in that instead of doing it within the command makes a difference too.
That's good, because I have a lot of friends in Brooklyn and Manhattan up in the Bronx who belong to a clergy organization. And the third one, please.
Probably maybe one of the biggest things, community that kid. I know so many people here, but it's like, well, all right, that's not my kid, or it's not my family, so I'm just gonna mind my business and stay here. Really the most effective way to help the police. We work together, a community that says, okay, that's not my child, that's not somebody I know. We don't want that happening. We need to all come together to solve that problem.
Thank you.
And the third one will be the money. Money. But this is what we're doing in Suffolk County. We have a grant from the mayor. So Deputy Commissioner Briscoe Lewis, she's the one who's in charge to ask for those grants. So we can have some money to use it in the programs. We also have the pastors together working to help. I am the one who called the pastor in Brentwood to have a meeting so we can have some hands, so we can get together and help to do this. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Rosanna. Thank you so much for your service to our communities. In thinking that today is all about mindset, the Hyundai ministers, they had a different mindset than the president. He wanted to get dollars, right? That was the thing they wanted to gain when they went to Saudi Arabia. But there were 3 reasons why it wasn't going to work. And if I think about, I'm a Bronx educator. I teach English and music in the Bronx, in a middle school. And thinking about the work that we're all invested in the community, they wanted dollars. We want to make sure no child, no adult ever destroys their life with drugs, with alcohol, with addiction. That's like our Saudi Arabia in a sense. But like even as an educator, I sometimes think I have some I can'ts. Like this isn't going to work because that. Or there's no way we can go there to do that work to eliminate kids following after gangs, kids following after addiction. There's no way to eliminate because of these things. So I guess what I want to ask us to do is, what are those three things? Like there's no alcohol, there's no women, there's no water. What are those 3 things that we have that are the I can'ts, and then what's gonna be our I can? Like what's our shared I can? There's so much good work that you're already doing in the community. And I think as a teacher, there's good things that I'm doing, but I think I have some hidden, reasons why I feel like, that child's not gonna change. And I recently, just a quick personal story, I recently had a former student who was an 8th grader last year, and now he's dead. He was hit by a train, he was involved in some criminal stuff, and then, I think about the times I had to talk with him, and now he's gone. So really in my heart as a teacher, we want to make sure that no child left behind, or no child goes the wrong way. That's our Saudi Arabia, and what are our 3 I can'ts, and then what's going to be our shared I can.
I feel like we can always guide the kids into doing good. We just can't force them, if that makes sense. So we can't force them. We can always say, hey, do this, do that, do this, do that. But we're not there. We don't know what they're going to do. We can't force them. If that makes sense.
I have been and I will continue to be a positive role model to the juveniles who are incarcerated. I will continue to treat them like as they were my own kids. I will not say anything or do anything to them that I don't do to my kids or my grandkids or my niece or nephew. I will treat them fairly, and I will respect them as a human being most of all, regardless of the charges or the delinquency. Always as a human being first, and then we'll deal with the other deficiencies after.
I would just say I can and I never will stop having hope.
That's 3 answers.
you would ask.
Hello, my name is Sophie. I'm a IYF volunteer, and I wanted to ask you a question about failure. And so, just a quick little testimony. I have a family member that went to Rikers once, and then did the same thing again, and then went to prison. And then there's a lot of programs in the prison to help them get jobs. But as soon as they come out, it seems that they're kind of like left alone. So they meet with different counselors, but it seems like they're still alone. And so as an IYF volunteer, I was thinking about those times of like failure. And so, there was someone in our volunteer that said to him, hey, if you send a resume 100 times, I guarantee you'll find a job. He sent it 100 times and he was able to find a job. And so in the program we have different games. And so one of the games was like a rock, paper, scissors. And the whole point of the game was to lose. And so it was hard for a lot of the students to actually lose. So if you didn't lose, you can go on to the next step. So I wanted to know, because when they come out of prison or they come out of community university, it's hard for them to want to, like, they can't fail. They have their minds not to fail. So I wanted to know if do you have some sort of program or something there where, for students or for the youth that can overcome failure, and what do you do for that?
Well, one thing definitely, with youth, honestly, it's difficult, but it's also a little easier. Because when you're an adult, and I know Mr. Payne could tell you more about how with adults, once you're out, you're out. You're on your own. You have to, fend for yourself. But with juveniles, we have options. Like right now, even kids who are dropping out of high school or choose that the high school environment is not for them. There's a program right now, at least we have here in the village, that it teaches kids carpentry, painting, electronics, things like that. So it gives them, okay, some kids are not going to always do well academically, but while they're being trained to do some learn tasks, how to do certain job functions, they get their GED. So at least it's something for them. It's not giving up on them if they choose that they can't be in school. And I don't know if that answers your question specifically, but at least I find that people will always try to find a way to help a child out. The child has his hand out that I need your assistance, someone's going to try to help out. And we try to find some way to put them in a program. But conversely, someone who's 30, 40, 50, just coming out of jail, it is very difficult for them. And I don't think they have anything, or not to my knowledge, anyone has a program for an adult who goes through that same situation, So, but I always tell everyone my personal story, because I like how you mentioned your personal story. I have one of my baby cousin, I'm very proud of her. She became a surgeon, ear, nose, and throat doctor, very proud of her. And then her brother, my other first cousin, has been in jail for most of his life, through his 20s and his 30s. We just had a conversation, because we fell out of touch over the years while he was away, because he was arrested in another country. But we had a conversation just last summer about, he's like, oh, the family left me behind. I'm like, well, due to your situation, it's hard to communicate with you, and due to your situation, but either way, what are you going to do now? And he said, it's hard. I don't have too many options, from education options to experience options, and it was difficult. And, we didn't have a solution, but I always feel that, and I say that for one reason, that when I talk to young people, it doesn't really matter the family you come from or the situation, it's sometimes your choices. He made several bad choices, and now his situation is very hard, but as a family, we're going to try to support him, as best we can, but there's really not too much for an adult who gets into serious trouble. It takes upon themselves to say, I got to correct my life. Right. I got to go ahead and do what's best for me, or figure out how to get a job. Let's say you said, file 100 applications, or do what you have to do, because you're on your own then, It's only with juveniles that still police department or local community will look to find a way to help them out, because they're still children, they still need help, So this is my little statement about, to answer closely to your question.
I just want to add, I wouldn't play a game with them to teach them you got to lose to go up, because they've already had so much of that. take it differently. And if I'm gonna, I have a little poem I wrote, I'm not gonna go through it, but when I deal with the youth, I tell them, and if you fail, fail forward. You're gonna fall forward, don't fall back. Fall forward, because when you get up, you're still further on than where you were. You made the mistake, take the responsibility, now keep moving forward. And then again, we got houses of worship, family, all of us have to take a part in how to bring that about for that young person, not just one particular area. It has to be all of us.
Are we telling them it's okay to fail?
No, what I'm saying, when you said, I was talking about when you said the game, the rock, papers, that's what I was talking about. I wouldn't do that game with young people, that's me personally, because they've already had so many failures. I would do something that helps them to go forward. That's what I'm saying. And when I did the poem, it was about kids that had already failed. Some of them had been through the system. And I wanted them to know just because you failed doesn't mean you're a failure. That's the difference. You failed, but you're not a failure.
Bear in mind that sometimes when you try to help a juvenile, it's a little difficult because, and I don't mean to say this in a negative way, teenagers know everything about nothing and nothing about everything. You take that, in New Jersey, there are programs set up within the detention center for those who are adjudicated and is serving a sentence in the detention center. So the social worker would set up work programs, educational, even have transportation to get them to and from, whether it's a GED program or to work, but it's set up to help them. And they'll go through how to fill out applications, everything. So everything is done. When they leave with bus tickets, routes, and a schedule how to get to school, how to get from school to work. But that is those who were sentenced to like 60 days, what they call a commitment program. The other kids who are released are on their own, which is nothing something. So you have to be like adjudicated and sentenced to a short-term sentence to receive those services. And the other thing we teach children is like never use good as a highest parameter for your achievements. Good is just a stepping stone to get better. You should always strive to be the best at whatever you do.
Okay.
저는
I'll translate for him. I can't speak English very well, so I'm sorry.
질문은 아니고요.
It's not as much of a question,
우리 행사에 관심 있어서
but I attended here because I was very interested in this event.
저는 중미의 9개 나라에서 야구를 활동하고 있습니다.
In Central America, I'm doing various work across 9 different countries.
제가 작년 4월달에 오라스
Last April, I went to Honduras,
영부인을
and I met the First Lady of the nation.
영부인께서 청소년 범죄 예방에 관심을 가졌습니다.
And she was very interested in the juvenile crime issues.
그 온두라스는 마라살바 트루차라는 범죄 중에
And so they have,
마라살바 트루차.
and that must be like a certain kind of gang. Yeah, there's a domestic gang there in Honduras. Yes.
9살 정도 되는 아이들을 스카우트하고
They say they scout them at the age of 9 years old.
그래서 이제 그 청소년들을 조직에 가지 않도록 예방 프로그램 부서가 있었어요.
And so they had a department that was creating programs to prevent that from happening.
그래서 제가 이제 소개를 받아서 그 리더들 교육을 합니다.
And so I was introduced to that program, and I went to train the leaders of that program.
그래서 청소년들에게 교육을 하다 보니까 이제 리더 교육을
So we were actually doing juvenile training programs, but we got connected to these leaders.
그러다 다시 이제 경찰 쪽에 경찰학교
And then I was able to attend the police academy there.
그래서 이제 오늘은 경찰 교육을 이제 하게 됐고요.
And now we began training the police from the academy.
그러다 12월 달에 작년 10월 도미니카 갔는데
And then last December, I went to Dominica,
경찰대학교 총장
and I met the chief or the commissioner of the police department there.
우리 아이와이프 사는 이제 교육에 대한 소개했어요.
And so I introduced to him the different programs that we were conducting.
저는 뭐 경찰을 잘 모르기 때문에
I don't know police officers very well,
우리가 청소년 교육하는 걸 말씀드립니다.
but I spoke to him about our youth programs.
마음의 6단계를 잠깐.
I spoke about the 6 different stages of our hearts.
누가복음 15장에 탕자 이야기.
In Luke chapter 10 of the Bible, it speaks about the prodigal son.
탕자가 이제 마음에 교만이 있을 때,
The prodigal son had an arrogant heart.
교만이 2단계 때,
That arrogance was stage 1.
아버지를 떠나 소란방탕해지고,
And then he departed from his father and he lived a riotous life.
교만한 사람은 마음이 항상 방탕해진다 2단계죠.
You know, in other words, an arrogant person becomes to live a riotous life.
그리고 세 번째는 이제 반드시 실패하고 망하게 됩니다.
And then the third stage was failure.
그리고 네 번째는 고통과 괴롭다.
And the 4th stage was going through difficulty and trials.
다섯 번째는 대지율에서 사는 비유치죠.
And then in the 5th stage, he was going through the dirty pig pen, living in that situation.
번째는 이제 아버지에게 돌아가 축복을 받습니다.
And then the 6th stage is returning back to the Father.
그런 이제 어떤 마음의 세계를 좀 총장이 이야기했어요.
And so when I spoke to the commissioner about the different stages in our heart,
총장님이 그 주변에 간부들을 이렇게 모았어요.
and so the commissioner had asked all of the people around him to gather together.
아, 우리 말이야, 우리 경찰들끼리 서로 나 잘났다, 너 잘났다, 우리 막 싸우잖아.
You know, he was telling the police officers, you know, we're always arguing about who's better than others.
그렇게 얘기를 하시는 거예요.
And he was explaining this to them.
그래서 우리가 이런 자만한 마음만 비우면 우리 경찰이 좋아집니다.
And he had the heart that if they get rid of their arrogance, then our police department would improve.
그러면서 이제 1월 달에 와서 교육을 좀 할 수 있다고 지금.
And so he invited me back in January to do training for them.
그래서 1월 22일 날 가서 이제 400명의 간부들과 교육을 했어요.
And so January 22nd, I went back to train all of the police officers at the academy.
사진입니다.
These are different pictures from the event that I attended.
그래서 이제 1월 달에 들어가서
So in January, I went
400명의 간부들하고 같이 많이 교육을 했어요.
and I spoke with 400 trainees.
저는 아이와이판에서 지금 교육을 많이 받아왔고 또 앞으로 하고 있는데요.
And so I have received a lot of training through the IYF until now, and I will be training many people going forward.
파나마에서 우리가 청소년 캠프를 하면서 경찰 상황 캠프도 왔어요.
And so in Panama, during the youth program we were having, we also invited many of the police trainees.
그 마인드 교육에 굉장히 관심이 많았고요.
And there was a lot of interest towards the mind education.
저는 이제 개인적으로 오늘 이곳에 와서 제가 볼 때 중미에 있는 그런 경찰하고는 미국 굉장히 다르다는 걸 느꼈어요.
You know, I came here today and I realized that the police officers here are very different than those who are in Central America.
어떤 경제 선진국처럼 경찰도 선진국에 위치해 있다고 생각합니다.
And I feel like, you know, you're also a very developed police program compared, because you're in a developed country, than some of the countries that I've been to.
많은 프로그램이 있기 때문에
You have many programs,
저희들 IYF에서 하고 있는 이런 인성 교육이나 이런 부분을 같이 또 일을 한다면 굉장히 더 좋아질 거라고 합니다.
and I had the heart that with the programs that we also conduct through the IYF, if we work together, then it'd be really beneficial.
저는 지금 나이 52살인데요.
I'm 52 years old right now.
지금 대학원에 다니고 있습니다.
I'm going to a graduate school.
목사면서도 제가 이제 경찰 학과에 다니고 있습니다.
I am a pastor, but I'm also receiving police training right now.
그래서 이제 2년 후에 박사 논문을 써야 되는데
And I have to write my thesis for my doctorate in crime studies.
중미에 있는 이제 여러 경찰과 범죄와 이런 부분들을 준비하고 있습니다.
And so right now I'm preparing my thesis around all of the different youth and criminal programs in South America.
오늘 제가 이 참석하면서 이런 정말 다양한 미국의 경찰의 프로그램들이 있다는 걸 굉장히 감사했고요.
And I was very thankful to hear of all the programs that you have here in America focused on these issues.
우리 IYF에 있는 이런 마인드 교육을 함께 할 수 있다면 굉장히 좋을 것 같습니다.
And I have the heart that even together with even our mind education programs, if we're able to work together, then it'll be very beneficial for all of us.
여러분들 바쁘신데 와주시고 함께 해주셔서 감사합니다.
And we're very thankful that despite your busy schedules that you were able to join us today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to close the panel discussion, or we can go like all night. So I don't think we can do that. So we're gonna close it here. But at this time, we'd like to take a commemorative photo with all our panelists and those in the audience at this time. So please, we'll have a brief photo together to commemorate the closing and the completion of our first Police and Corrections Forum. However, going forward, I will International Fellowship, who's been hosting this event, we will assure every department represented here today that we will go forward. We'll put together our own proposal and plans and what we can do to help and support everyone. And then we'll probably be able to do that as well. So as they eat, after the commemorative photo, we have a dinner prepared for all the panelists and those in the audience. So please, at that time, as you have dinner with all the panelists, please feel free to continue the conversation. Talk about various topics, get to know our panelists as well. We're very thankful that all of us are able to participate.
What common themes do you see when you work with ex-convicts all over the world?
전 세계에 있는 재소자들에게 있는 공통적인 부분이 무엇인지요?
재소자들이 가지고 있는 마인드는 사실은 거의 대부분 똑같습니다.
And so the heart that the ex-convicts usually have are usually always the same.
어떤 어려움이 오거나 문제가 왔을 때
Whenever there's a problem or a difficulty,
그 문제를 넘어갈 힘이 없습니다.
they lack the strength to be able to overcome that difficulty.
많은 재수사들이 저를 찾아오는데,
I have many criminals who come to me.
한국에서는 좋은 직장도 잡아주기도 하고,
while in Korea they provide them with good jobs.
또 좋은 집도 마련해주고,
they even provide them with good homes.
기술도 가르쳐해봤습니다.
And they've also taught them many skills.
근데 이 사람들이 그 회사에 취직을 해서 한 6개월을 버티지 못하는 거예요.
However, once they get hired into that workforce, they're not able to last for even over 6 months.
왜냐하면 회사에 생활하는 인간적으로 이제 갈등이 생기는 겁니다.
Because while they're living inside of that working environment, there's conflicts.
나를 무시한다든지.
Let's say, for example, they feel like somebody is despising them.
어려움이 왔을 때,
or when there's some sort of problem,
때려쳐버립니다.
they just give up.
그만두고 나와버립니다.
And they just come out and they quit.
나를 전과자라고 무시하는 거야?
Or are you despising me because you consider me as an ex-convict?
그냥 뛰쳐나오기 때문에.
And so because they run out of it,
보통 사람들은 그런 직장에 취직을 해서 어려움도 겪고 억울한 일 당해가면서 참으면서 한 달 월급을 받습니다.
While majority of people, they go through those kinds of difficulties, they go through those struggles, and they have to bear through it, and they receive their 1-month pay.
그러면서 가정을 꾸려 나가는데.
And that's how they're able to continue on with their families.
사람들 그 어려움이 와서 넘어가지 못합니다.
However, these people, they're unable to overcome those difficulties when faced them.
그 때려치고 나오면.
So once they give up,
저 어려움 안 겪고 돈 벌 수 있는 방법이 뭡니까?
So what is the best way for you to be able to make money without having to go through difficulties?
남들이 고생해 돈 벌어오면 그걸 훔쳐오고 도둑질하고 강도질하고 사기치고.
And so while other people struggle to make money, what they do is they go and just take from them, steal from them, rob from them, and then they commit con. They're con artists.
마음이 약하다는 거예요.
That means that their heart is weak.
이게 전 세계 범죄자들이 가지고 있는 공통점이에요.
This is the common thing that you see amongst all criminals around the world.
마약이 여기 쉽게 마약에 끌려가고.
Whenever there's drugs, then they are easily led by those drugs.
범죄 쉽게 범죄 끌려가고.
And whenever there is the heart of crime, they are easily led by that crime.
마음이 약한 것이 문제예요.
And so having a weak heart is the problem.
How do you see within what happened today during the panel? How do you see New York City or Long Island itself become better with the recidivism problem that is occurring constantly here and throughout the world?
지금 여기서나 또한 이제 전 세계로서 재범이 문제들이 계속 일어나고 있는데 그런 일들을 어떻게 막을 건지 지금 오늘 한 행사를 통해서나 지금 앞으로 뉴욕에서나 또한 이렇게 뉴욕주나 전 세계로서 그 일들을 어떻게 가로막고 어떻게 맞서갈 건지에 대해서 얘기해 주시죠.
교도소 안에서 저는 이 마인드 교육을 받았습니다.
So I received this mind education while I was in prison.
저는 왜 잘못된 인생을 산 줄도 잘 몰랐었고
I actually had no idea that I even lived a wrong life.
저는 IF를 만나서 교도소의 마인드 교육을 받으면서 생각이 바뀌었습니다.
While I was inside the prison and receiving the mind education, my thoughts changed.
개념들이 바뀐 거죠.
And so my concepts actually changed.
왜냐면 나는 늘 어렸을 때부터 어려운 일을 피하고 부담스러운 일을 피하고 그렇게 살았어요.
The reason was because every time I was faced with difficulties inside of my life, I always try to avoid them. I always try to avoid burdensome things.
그렇기 때문에 생각의 구조가 부담스러운 일을 싫어하는 거예요.
And that was why the structure of my heart hated burdensome things.
근데 이 마인드 교육을 받으면서 내가 왜 인생을 실패할 수밖에 없었는지
However, when receiving this mind education, I came to realize why I had no choice but to fail in my life.
쉽고 편하게 돈 버는 방법이 범죄잖아요.
You know, criminals are those that are trying to make money easy and also comfortably for them.
그래서 저는 이 선생님을 만나서 이 마음의 세계를 배웠습니다.
And so while I was able to meet this instructor of mine, that's how I was able to receive change in my life.
저는 그러면서 제가 재수자들을 위해서 마인드 교육이 너무 중요하다는 사실을 알게 됐습니다.
And that's when I came to realize that this mind education for the criminals is so important.
한국에서 진짜 사실 있었던 일이 있었는데요.
This is an actual incident that took place in South Korea.
선생님이 학교에서 아이들한테 교육을 했습니다.
And so there was a teacher who was educating the students at her school.
썰매를 탈 때
Everyone, when you ride on a sled,
얼음이 얇게 얼어서 빠질 때는 반드시 손을 벌리십시오.
and so on times when the ice becomes weakened and then it falls underneath you, you have to spread out your hands.
이게 작은 교육이었지만
It was a small form of education.
그 교육을 받은 아이들은 살았어요.
However, all the kids that received this education, they lived.
이제 얼음에 빠지면 순간적으로 들어가면은 나오지를 못합니다.
And so once the ice falls beneath them and they go right in, there's no way for them to be able to be released from
선생님이
that.
들었던 한 마디가
And so those words which they heard from the teacher,
얼음이 깨져서 빠졌으면 손을 벌려라.
and as soon as the ice falls underneath you, stretch forth your
그
hands.
한마디 아이들의 생명을 살렸던 것처럼
And those one words actually saved the lives of those kids.
마인드 교육이라는 자체가 그렇습니다.
Mind education is also the same.
그러면서 이 교육을 받으면서 제 마음에서 내가 너무 행복해졌습니다.
While I was receiving this education, I became very happy.
그래서 그 일들을 재수자들에게 소년원들에게 좀 하고 싶은 마음이 있습니다.
And I had the intention and the wish of wanting to provide this education for all of the criminals and also for even students that are inside of the you know what you call it, the juveniles as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
감사합니다.
I really do thank you for your time.
시간 내주셔서 감사합니다.